This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate third and final part of What If Naruto's Saiyan Bloodline was sealed at birth. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
After 20.2 hours, the 11 ninjas were discovered staking out the building 22 hours later. The side of the building nearest the armory was where they were. It was agreed that Sasuke's and Naruto's specific tasks should be completed as soon as possible so that he can battle Ryu and Kenji. Levitating above the building, Sasuke and Naruto awaited the appropriate moment. Naruto charged up a ball of energy in his hands and looked around to see that the guards had just switched. Then he dropped the ball, causing it to burst into a flash of light as it exploded in the air. The signal to start was that flash of light. Naruto began focusing power into his hands as soon as he sent the signal. The energy assumed the recognizable glow of the signature attack of his ancestors. Riot Javelin! Naruto yelled as he threw his hand back, aiming it at the armory. The assault proceeded, smashed through the armory's roof, and detonated. In order to target two of the kunai turrets he could see, Sasuke charged up two super ki blasts. Then he was airborne, shooting as he flew over the building toward the others. His blasts further damaged the area by destroying the turret and weakening the roof, allowing the remains to fall through. He regrouped with everyone after finishing. Lee energized himself and aimed a massive yellow ki beam at the building after realizing that the other two had completed their task. The explosion struck the wall, passed through it, and destroyed everything between it and the building's opposite side. A significant portion of the roof collapsed as a result of those walls supporting the entire structure. Upon Sasuke and Naruto's landing, Lee grinned and remarked, "If that won't draw their attention, nothing will." It attracted people's attention, just as they had intended. There were 11 people standing when the armory's smoke cleared. Ryu and Kenji were two. With the same facial scar from their previous encounter, Toguro stood between them. The scar extended from his forehead's upper right corner to his jaw's lower left corner. Additionally, Toguro appeared to have gained some muscle since their last encounter. 5 individuals wearing black pants were also standing with them. Additionally, they wore black vests with black shirts underneath and a dragon-themed black headband. It was clear from their attire that they were the newest members of the Hydra division. Konoha headbands with a slit through the leaf symbol were worn by the final 3. They were all dressed in generic Chunin attire. However, Tanbo had gauze wrapped around his scalp and forehead. Shinobu's hair was black and reached his neck. Kenji replied, well, if it isn't Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Kakashi Hatake, Neji Hyuga, Tenten, Rock Lee, Maeda Guy, and Gaara, Tamari, and Kankuro of the Sand. How are you all? Naruto's gaze expanded. Did Kenji know their names? However, how did Naruto learn their names when he never remembered telling them? Observing Naruto's bewildered look, Toguro grinned. He continued, I bet you're wondering how we know your names. Your villages have serious holes in their defenses. A few fake IDs and listening to the words on the grapevine will get you a lot of info. Ryu laughed as he said, we knew Kakashi and Guy before because of Tanbo, Shinobu, and Hamaki. They left the village before these others became genin, but what they knew of Konoha's defenses was enough for us to infiltrate your village. For such a strong village, your defenses are completely crappy. Apparently ignoring Ryu's statement, Naruto turned to face the Chunin and asked, can we kill them now? According to Guy, I thought you'd never ask. After giving Kenji a small smile, Naruto ran over to him. Sasuke ran to Ryu, and Lee ran to Toguro, in pursuit of him. In a shunshin, Guy and Kakashi vanished and then resurfaced behind the adversaries. Kakashi knocked Shinobu and Tanbo forward by kicking them in the back. After taking Hamaki, Guy chose a new recruit at random to engage in combat. The battle broke out between the new recruits and the remaining genin. With Naruto. Without hesitation, Naruto headed straight for Kenji. He cocked his fist back and took off at full speed. He punched Kenji in the face when he was close enough. Or if Kenji hadn't used his unique talent, he would have. Kenji used his speed ability when the fist was 2 centimeters away. Naruto's punch appeared to be moving in slow motion after that. Kenji effortlessly sidestepped the punch entirely by jumping slightly to the left. Naruto missed his punch completely when he stopped using his ability. Naruto was on the verge of losing his balance because he threw his weight behind that punch. With a sly smile, Kenji kicked Naruto in the back of the head, causing him to fall into the building's debris. With a sly smile, Kenji vanished behind him. Naruto saw Kenji pursuing him when he halted and turned around. As Naruto shot upward, Kenji's attack failed miserably. When Naruto landed once more, Kenji was directly in front of him. Naruto's chest exploded with pain as Kenji smirked a moment later. Kenji struck Naruto again, this time blowing him backwards from the pain. Naruto easily hit Kenji with a ki blast after he caught himself. In an attempt to gain the upper hand, Naruto ran at Kenji, but each blow was deflected. Naruto attempted a kick but failed. Then he saw Kenji smirk once more and the pain returned. He hit the ground after being blown backwards once more. He felt a weight on his chest and Kenji materialized as he attempted to stand up. Then, at breakneck speed, Kenji began punching him in the face. Naruto felt every blow and was powerless to stop it. He was totally pinned, and his head would be smashed in if he didn't act quickly. Naruto concentrated power all over his body and then released it as a wave of ki. The wave blew part of the roof off and knocked Kenji off him. Naruto tried to think of a way out of this while floating in midair. He can't hit me up here because he can't fly. But he'll just dodge, so I can't hit him either. We're at a standstill. However, if I've learned anything from watching TV shows, it's that the bad guy will harm a friend in order to get even with you. Naruto clenched his fists, channeled all of his energy, and became a Super Saiyan. Kenji used his ability to run at Naruto as he touched down, and Naruto ran back at him. Punching each other in the jaw, they came together in the center. They were both knocked back 50 feet by the force of the punches. After recovering from the blows, they ran at one another once more and collided in a split second. Kenji witnessed Naruto attempting to punch his jaw once more when they met in the center. Kenji ducked out of the way and gave Naruto a stomach punch. But the blow passed through him. Kenji noticed that what he believed to be Naruto was turning transparent as he looked at him. He failed to notice Naruto creating an afterimage prior to the attack landing. He began to charge up a ki blast and ran behind Kenji. Kenji was shot in the attack, knocked forward, and collided with a wall. Then, aiming a punch at Kenji's face, Naruto fled after him. With ease, Kenji used his left forearm to block the blow, but then it felt as though every bone in his arm turned to jelly. Naruto punched him once more, bursting through the wall as he flinched from the pain. He chased after him and punched Kenji in the face once more. Kenji shifted his head aside. His attempt to kick Naruto in the face was thwarted. Kenji leapt behind Naruto as he attempted to punch him in the chest. Then, to knock Kenji back, Naruto kicked him in the face. He crashed on the floor after going through 2 walls. He did say that he could only do that for a short period of time, Naruto thought. I might be able to beat him if I can strike him as soon as he exits the super speed thing. Underscore. Alongside Sasuke, Naruto fled, and Sasuke charged Ryu. He began to devise a plan to break down the barrier, activating his Sharingan and avoiding the chakra blades. That obstacle always appears. I must move past it. I'm not familiar with the Shunshin, though. I can't think of any other way to get past that. Sasuke began to perform hand seals while dodging another barrage of chakra blades. When he was done, he held his right arm out to his side, pointing with his middle and index fingers. Then he shouted the attack's name. Fire style. Fire blade jutsu. Fire erupted from Sasuke's index and middle fingers as he called out the jutsu's name. The fire took the shape of a 3-foot blade as it began to go out. Using the speed he had developed from working with Naruto, Sasuke charged forward. When he arrived at the barrier, he cut it with the attack. With his Sharingan, he could actually see the barrier being torn apart by the force of the slash. He also witnessed the barrier's attempt at self-healing. Sasuke made a hole large enough to hop through after slicing the barrier twice more. He approached Ryu closely enough for Ryu to leap back and land on a wall of chakra to keep Sasuke at bay. Just prior to Ryu erecting another wall, Sasuke cut the wall with the blade. Sasuke turned, putting all of his weight behind a fire blade stab. A portion of Ryu's arm was pierced by the blade as it passed through the chakra wall. The blade fizzled out after that final cut. Damn, the 10-second time limit ran out, Sasuke thought to himself. Using his slight advantage, he began performing more hand seals. Fire style. Flamethrower jutsu, he exclaimed as he was done, jerking his head back and taking a deep breath. Then he blasted the fire out of his lungs and thrust his head forward. Ryu was hit by the attack before he could mount a strong defense. Ryu managed to surround himself with a weak bubble of chakra before he was engulfed in the flames. However, the bubble was short-lived, and the attack burned him. In an attempt to shield his face from the assault, he crossed his forearms in front of him, but it was ineffective. Ryu was badly burned when the assault subsided. His clothing was charred. He had 2nd and 3rd degree burns on his forearms. Satisfied with the damage his new attacks caused, Sasuke grinned. However, Ryu launched a wall of chakra at him, knocking him backwards in the process. Sasuke backflipped to steady himself and recovered in the air by blasting out his aura. He dodged all of his chakra blades as he launched himself at Ryu. When he was close enough, he used a haymaker to damage Ryu's new barrier. Sasuke knew what he was going to do when he saw Ryu smirk. The chakra blades are returning. Sasuke's suspicions were validated as he turned around. 10 blades of chakra were advancing on him. Sasuke flew to the right, concentrating ki all over his body and leaving an afterimage behind. Since Ryu didn't see Sasuke go, he believed the afterimage to be the real Sasuke and continued to use his chakra blades in their direction. However, the blades struck Sasuke's barrier as they passed through him, further weakening it. Then, concentrating his energy in his hand, Sasuke launched a charged ki blast at the barrier before taking off in its direction. Sasuke's second punch caused the barrier to collapse after the ki blast struck it, further weakening it. Sasuke flew through to Ryu and attempted a punch to his jaw, which struck and launched Ryu into the air. However, Ryu bounced back, and 10 feet away, Ryu choked Sasuke when he tried to punch him again. An unseen hand was choking Sasuke as he gasped for air. Sasuke saw Ryu pull his hand back as he looked with his Sharingan. 10 times the size of Ryu's original hand, he saw a spectral chakra hand imitating Ryu's arm movements. The ghostly fist then advanced and struck Sasuke in the abdomen. Sasuke felt the fist mutilate his stomach, forcing out what little air he had, and his eyes bulged out. Sasuke's vision began to shift as he was strangled. He saw the ghostly hand choking him for a moment. He couldn't the next time. He was rapidly losing control of his Sharingan. I only have one shot at this, Sasuke thought to himself as he saw Ryu's trademark laugh. I must make it worthwhile. Sasuke turned toward Ryu, concentrating as much ki as he could in his mouth. Sasuke released the attack, aiming for Ryu, as soon as he sensed the energy building up as much as it could. He launched a yellow beam of energy from his mouth as the attack. The beam struck Ryu squarely in the chest after traveling the distance between him and Sasuke. Ryu was blasted backwards by the attack, which caused him to lose focus on Sasuke. With his final breath, Sasuke managed to escape the chokehold and hit the ground with a slam. Sasuke struggled to catch his breath and managed to stand again, but only just. Should I use the Senzu bean Naruto gave me? He asked himself, casting a glance into his left pocket. No, I might need it later if things worsen beyond this. Sasuke turned back to face his opponent, his aura flaring as he tried to recover some of the energy he had lost. Sasuke was able to recover 30% of his total energy by focusing more on it, which allowed him to reach 40% of his full power. Sasuke prepared for a fight after witnessing Ryu get back up. Sasuke turned on his Sharingan and prepared to battle Ryu once more. With Lee. Lee flew in Toguro's direction, firing at the immortal assassin. He landed a quick punch that took Toguro by surprise. By avoiding Toguro's kick and blocking his punch, Lee leapt into the air and broke Toguro's jaw with the leaf whirlwind. Lee followed Toguro after he was knocked back. Lee reappeared in Toguro's path and kicked him in the air. He vanished and then resurfaced, kicking Toguro to the roof of the structure. Lee made the decision to stop holding back and take their battle away from the others. Lee shouted, "Leaf whirlwind," and leapt into the air for a flying roundhouse as he rushed at Toguro. Toguro saw Lee charging at him and braced himself to be knocked away again. "Leaf spear," Lee yelled as he leapt back into the air and attempted a flying sidekick. Toguro only retreated a few feet, but the kick struck him squarely in the chest. Lee was caught off guard when Toguro blocked his punch as he came in for another one. Toguro took advantage of that by circling his right arm and punching Lee in the face. After knocking him back 10 feet, Lee barely managed to stand up before he delivered an uppercut that sent him flying. With a sly smile, Toguro leapt as high as Lee. Lee was blasted back into the building, destroying the portion of the roof they were on, after being hit in the stomach with a double-handed axe. With a mutter, "How the hell is he that strong?" Lee stood up and levitated himself up to Toguro. Toguro laughed and replied, "I'll tell you how. 2 months of stressing your body to the limit. With my ability, when the connections between my muscles break because they get stressed, they're instantly repaired, stronger than before. I was training non-stop to where I didn't sleep for a week at times. I put on about 200 pounds of pure muscle. And when that started hindering my movement, the scientists at Hydra devised a way to make it so that I only gained 20 pounds of muscle, but I'm still as strong as if I had all 200. Now I'm faster, stronger, and immortal. I bet your dad couldn't even defeat me now." Lee replied, "My dad is stronger than me, and I can easily defeat you." With an evil smirk, Toguro said, "We'll see." Toguro launched a punch at Lee. but Lee dodged it and punched Toguro in the chest instead of his head. Lee lunged for a punch and threw Toguro to the ground. Lee followed him into the air and threw 10 punches at Toguro, knocking him to the ground. Lee flew up behind him and restrained Toguro's movement by grabbing him by the waist. Lee flipped over and began spinning as quickly as he could to the left, carrying Toguro with him. Lee shouted, "Primary Lotus," and aimed for the ground, causing a near twister. Lee smashed Toguro into the roof and then the ground, aiming them at the ground. Because he was shorter than Toguro, he was spared some of the damage. Lee struck Toguro in the chest, flipping him right side up and sending him to the ground. Lee repeatedly punched Toguro until he was buried 10 feet underground. As Lee levitated upward, he blasted the walls with ki, causing the hole to conceal itself. Lee waited for Toguro to emerge while he sat there. Toguro did not let him down. "What the hell? You buried me underground," exclaimed Toguro as he emerged from his earthly prison. "My dad said you did that exact same thing to him. Irony's a bitch, ain't she?" Lee said in a deadpanned voice. "Shut up," Toguro yelled, then struck Lee across the jaw. Lee began performing hand seals while recuperating in the air. "Fire style. Grand Fireball Jutsu," Lee yelled, unleashing a massive ball of fire directly into Toguro's eager face. Lee maintained the jutsu in the hopes that it would slow him down. Regretfully, it didn't, as Toguro proceeded through the blaze. He began choking Lee after grabbing him by the throat. Toguro stuck the back of Lee's head against the wall and continued running down the hallway where they were fighting, pulling Lee while his head toward the wall. Toguro leapt into the air, dragged Lee around, and used him to absorb the blow that would have otherwise gone through the roof. Toguro threw Lee away after smashing his head against the roof when they landed there. Lee was still fighting even though the back of his head was bleeding when he recovered. Lee kicked Toguro in the side of the head and then delivered an uppercut to his jaw to block a punch from Toguro. Lee grabbed him and flew into the air. Then he dropped Toguro directly to the ground. Upon releasing Toguro from his embrace, Lee began to channel his energy into an orb. Electricity began dancing around the orb's outer shell as it turned a royal purple color. Lee shouted, "Gaelic gun, fire," and aimed the attack at Toguro. Lee continued to put energy into the attack after taking a direct hit on Toguro, shredding him to pieces. Lee let the attack go in an attempt to replenish some of the energy he had expended during that fight. With Naruto, after charging at Kenji, Naruto kicked him in the chest and punched him in the jaw. Naruto knocked him back and followed. Naruto rushed in and punched Kenji, knocking him away as his fist struck his mouth. Kenji managed to turn around in midair and recover while flying back. Then, using his super speed, he flew in Naruto's direction. After that, Naruto flew in Kenji's direction, meeting him halfway. Then they both began kicking and punching each other at supersonic speed. Naruto dodged a blow from Kenji and hit Kenji in the jaw with an uppercut. Kenji sent a knee to Naruto's stomach, but he leaned back a little to avoid it. Naruto took the blow and punched Kenji in the stomach. Naruto grinned a little when he saw Kenji get slightly better from the pain. Kenji then attempted to strike him once more, but this time it was much slower than usual. He's out of his super speed, Naruto thought. This is my opportunity. After giving Kenji a sly smile, Naruto let hell loose on his body. Naruto destroyed Kenji's body with a barrage of attacks at nearly Mach 2 speed. Naruto finished his barrage by giving Kenji a bone shattering kick to the stomach as additional damage. Kenji was thrown backwards by the kick and was more than 100 feet away. Naruto charged energy into his left hand as he chased after him. "Riot Javelin!" Naruto yelled as he threw the attack at Kenji when it turned blue. The assault went ahead, but Kenji was not hit. With a sly smile, Kenji used his super speed ability to launch himself toward Naruto. Naruto began to block Kenji's attacks, cursing his luck, but the attacks were beginning to affect him. Naruto was kicked in the stomach, which caused him to fall backwards into the building. Following him, Kenji began attacking Naruto relentlessly. However, Naruto managed to block many of them this time. Naruto resumed destroying Kenji after his speed ability was deactivated. Naruto and Kenji engaged in another supersonic duel after Kenji began to fight back. To make up for the harm Kenji had caused him, Naruto let loose a giant can of whoop-ass on him as they were leaving. They were caught up in this vicious cycle. After 5 more minutes of combat, Kenji emerged from his speed state and Naruto witnessed him get his second wind. In preparation for Kenji's attack, Naruto prepared to defeat him. As soon as Kenji entered the speed stage, Naruto began to block his blows. After the allotted time had passed, Naruto beat Kenji once more. Naruto kicked Kenji in the chest, knocking him back and allowing Naruto to breathe when he Entered the speed state. He can only use that speed thing for 25 seconds, Naruto thought. He must then remain out of it for 5 seconds. I must therefore strike him with something during those 5 seconds in order to remove him. Naruto braced himself as he saw Kenji running back toward him. Naruto waited until Kenji was 2 feet away while concentrating ki around his body. Naruto sped around Kenji, leaving an afterimage where he had been. The afterimage was grinning when Kenji's fist went through the phony Naruto. Kenji kicked around and his foot went through another afterimage. Naruto punched Kenji in the jaw as he turned back to the first afterimage. Then, taking Kenji by the arm, Naruto launched himself into the air. Naruto was flying higher and higher, reaching regions of the atmosphere that most people would never be able to see. Naruto noticed that Kenji was shivering and was having trouble breathing. Although Naruto was experiencing the same effects, his aura was preventing him from being as affected by the freezing temperatures. As Naruto raised Kenji higher and higher, he felt the surroundings deteriorate and witnessed the effects worsen for Kenji. Naruto felt as though he was going to faint, so he decided that his current situation was sufficient and left Kenji. Naruto began to focus all of his energy between his hands as Kenji was falling. Naruto began chanting as he flew down to keep Kenji in his sights. Ka. The energy ball expanded to double its normal size. Me. When Kenji saw the orb, his eyes grew as big as saucers. Ha. Kenji tried to accelerate his descent in any way he could after realizing what he was going to do in the hopes of landing and clearing the path. Me. Kenji continued to yell, no, 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 as he realized he wouldn't make it. Naruto then flew down until just 5 feet separated them. Ha! Releasing the blast, Naruto was propelled nearly 10 feet into the air by the kickback. A few miles from the building, Kenji was blown to the ground after being struck in the chest by the Kamehameha wave. The blast exploded as he struck, sending a massive dust cloud skyward. Kenji lay on the ground near death when the cloud lifted. Naruto saw the extent of Kenji's damage when he landed close to his body. Kenji appeared to have no flesh at all on his chest. Naruto was able to observe his organs in action. However, his chest's blood vessels were completely destroyed. When Naruto realized that Kenji would eventually die, he began to smile. After leaving Super Saiyan, Naruto sat down next to Kenji's body in the hopes that he would soon bleed out. Alongside Sasuke, Ryu got back to his feet, and Sasuke waited. Sasuke drew his fist back, prepared to strike Ryu's lights out as he charged toward his adversary. He was smashed from above before he could reach it. Ryu smashed him into the ground with a wall of chakra. After telekinetically lifting Sasuke, Ryu repeatedly slammed him to the ground. Then he flung Sasuke back. Sasuke stopped himself as he was flying backwards and blasted in Ryu's direction. With the intention of harming Sasuke, Ryu began to shoot more chakra blades. Sasuke began destroying them by firing ki blasts at each one. 2 of the blades landed in his forearms after he missed a few. Fire style. Fire Dragon Flame Missile. Sasuke exclaimed as he approached, took a deep breath, and unleashed a huge dragon of fire on his adversary. The dragon attacked and destroyed Ryu's shield as it sailed forward. Ryu was able to partially protect himself by leaping out of the blast's path. Ryu was furious now. He was having so much trouble with this little boy. He should never have been on the same level as that boy. Ryu gave Sasuke a narrowed look, similar to Naruto's Kamehameha attack. Ryu knelt down. The distinction was that Ryu did not have his right hand in a fist. He began to muster his strength for the assault. Chakra was literally compressed into the tiny gap between Ryu's left and right hands, as Sasuke could see. As soon as Sasuke realized what Ryu was doing, he began to fire ki blasts in an attempt to divert Ryu's attention. However, Ryu continued to build up the energy despite everything. Sasuke was approaching Ryu more and more as he fired ki blasts. Before long, he was only 3 feet from Ryu. Sasuke exclaimed, "Fire style! Flamethrower jutsu!" and exhaled a massive stream of fire while performing hand seals more quickly than he had ever imagined. Sasuke was giving the attack his all and doing everything he could to prevent Ryu from launching his attack. Ryu grinned and pushed his right hand forward as he watched Sasuke perform hand seals. The explosion that followed was catastrophic. The invisible blast soared out when the attack was launched, colliding with and totally subduing Sasuke's flamethrower jutsu. Sasuke's only option after his attack failed was to raise a little ki shield. Sasuke was picked up by the blast as it proceeded, destroying the ground and everything in its path. The blast pushed Sasuke back 150 yards. Trees and other obstacles were destroyed by the blast, which carried Sasuke with it. Sasuke could hardly resist being propelled further than he was. Sasuke barely managed to survive the attack before being shredded. Sasuke was defeated and left on the ground when the attack subsided. Raising his body, Sasuke began to limp back to Ryu's place, gaining strength as he went. He turned off his Sharingan on the way to conserve his limited energy. While moving, he was able to accumulate energy, but not as much as if he were standing motionless. When he returned, Ryu was standing there, panting as if he had just finished a marathon. Sasuke charged in, putting his weight into a massive right punch across Ryu's face, realizing that this was his only chance. Despite stumbling back from the attack, Ryu was unharmed. Ryu ran forward and kicked Sasuke in the face, nailing him. He used his advantage to knock Sasuke back on his ass with a clumsy punch and a subsequent kick. Sasuke stood back up and saw Ryu approaching him. Sasuke threw all of his energy into his right fist and used his left to block Ryu's right punch. Sasuke sidestepped to the left and moved Ryu's arm out of the way with his left hand when Ryu attempted to strike him again. Sasuke saw an opening and used his right fist to strike. Ryu was sent into a 1080-degree spin and headed straight for the ground after Sasuke's punch. Sasuke began breathing heavily once more and shifted his weight away from his left leg, cursing himself for going overboard. He needed to get his energy back because he had just wasted it all. After considering his options, Sasuke chose not to use the Senzu Bean at this time. However, it might still be required in the future. Sasuke stumbled to his feet and began to flare his aura, recharging as much energy as he could. He grabbed Ryu and moved to where he thought Naruto was fighting. With Lee. Lee finished firing his Gaelic gun and fell to the ground, waiting for Toguro to rise again, as he always did. Toguro's frantic run toward Lee after he leapt through the building's debris didn't disappoint him. Lee kicked Toguro in the stomach, knocking him back slightly, and blocked his first blow. Lee leapt forward and punched Toguro in the jaw in retaliation. Lee spun around and kicked Toguro in the face with his heel to send him flying off the roof, capping off his combo. Lee made the decision to get things going because he was tired. Lee focused his energy and grabbed Super Saiyan's power. Entering the transformation, Lee grasped what he could. A tiny muscle bulge and a golden aura appeared. His hair began to blow up, giving the impression that it was a deeper violet color. Toguro saw Lee's eyes go blank as he stood back up. A soulless shade of white that promised Paina and a Helluva Lodavita instead of an iris or pupil. Toguro watched in hope of locating Lee after he vanished. When he found Lee, he connected it with Toguro's chin, but Lee had already pulled his leg back. Lee launched Toguro into the air and followed him. Lee grabbed him by the throat and shot higher into the air. Lee didn't care that Toguro was kicking and punching him. As his task led them further and further away from the building, he suppressed the pain in order to complete it. Lee began to spin as he flew down, turning to the ground. Lee took the hand on Toguro's neck and completely flipped it upside down, still holding onto Toguro's neck as they hit the ground at supersonic speeds. Lee picked him up once more, launched himself into the air, and then flung him back to the ground. Lee grabbed Toguro's leg as he landed by him, swooped down to the ground, and flew to where Naruto and Sasuke were engaged in combat. Lee flew over there as soon as he heard Naruto's Kamehameha shockwave. Lee began examining Kenji's body after dropping Toguro's by his. He replied, "Damn Naruto, how much energy did you put in that Kamehameha?" Smirking, Naruto remarked, "Most of my energy." Upon leaving false Super Saiyan, Lee remarked solemnly, "Well, you'd better start charging up. I don't think I finished off Toguro." With wide open eyes, Naruto exclaimed, "What the hell do you mean you didn't finish him off? You snapped his neck." Lee stated, "This bastard has gotten up from anything I could throw at him. He's gonna get up from this, I know it." They turned as they sensed Sasuke coming and saw him flying with Ryu's body. Sasuke landed with the others, dropping him along with the other two. They talked for a little while before deciding to see what the other genin were up to. They gathered their strength and flew to the other people's location to check on them. They landed and assessed the damage. 3 men and 1 woman were discovered. They all wore the same outfits as Ryu, Toguro, and Kenji. 2 of the men had the same appearance. They both wielded 5-foot long swords and had red hair. Their hair was pulled back in a long ponytail. Their scars were the only thing that separated them. One's right eye was scarred. Over his left side, one was scarred. The final man had short black hair that was spiky. His clothing was adorned with an 8-point star. He wore black earrings and a black piercing on the side of his nose. He was using what was a short blade. In contrast to the men, the girl wore a black headpiece that covered her ears and forehead. She also had white hair. The golden dragon's emblem was displayed on the headpiece. She didn't even have a weapon. Sakura had a large red bruise on her head and was unconscious. The others were doing well. After killing the other missing nin, Guy and Kakashi joined the genin. The genin appeared to be having their asses handed to them. Kankuro left Karasu, his puppet, on the ground because he was missing an arm. The caged bird seal had left Neji with a large cut across his forehead. Tenten was fighting with his sword out. Tamari was trying to bash their skulls in her fan, which had a hole in it. Somehow, Gaara was leaning back. Rather than fighting, he was caring for the injured. It was strange that Guy and Kakashi were fighting the new recruits with taijutsu. Kakashi is famous for possessing more than 1,000 jutsu. Surely this could have been avoided with one of those 1,000? Then why didn't he use any? Gaara! Sasuke exclaimed as he hurried to where she was. Why isn't anyone using ninjutsu? It's like they're scared of using chakra. Gaara looked at Sasuke with a sad expression and, that's because they are. The special abilities of those new recruits. One of them, one of the red-haired guys, Kaiza, has the ability of negating the chakra of anyone within 20 feet of him. His twin, Kazuya, has the ability to boost others' powers and he can fly. Luckily for us his long-range jutsu sucks and he can't aim that well. Kazuya boosted the powers of Kaiza so anyone within 200 feet of him wouldn't be able to use chakra. In a whisper, Naruto said, "That is not good." Gaara replied, "No, that's some of the best news. Sakuya, white-haired girl, can control others' minds." Lee said, "She can what?" with a shocked expression. Gaara stated, "She can control people's minds. She was fighting Guy along with one of those missing nin from your village. She took over Guy's body and was starting to fight us. When she tried to take Kakashi's too, the strain became too much for her, and she passed out for a little bit. Luckily for us, when she woke up, Kazuya boosted Kaiza's abilities so we won't have to worry about her for a while." "What can the last two do?" asked Naruto as he continued. Gaara replied, "I don't know exactly. Moroku, guy with short black hair, has unlimited energy. When I say unlimited, I mean it. Before Kaiza joined in the battle, he was shooting jutsus left and right. I've never seen someone shoot that many jutsus and not take a break. He's gonna be trouble." "What about that last one?" murmured Naruto. "Kagura," Gaara said, "I don't know." "What do you mean you don't know?" asked Naruto. Gaara stated, "I was fighting Moroku. Neji was fighting Kazuya. Sakura and Tenten teamed up on Kaiza. Kagura was left to Kankuro and Tamari. You'll have to ask them." Naruto was weighing their alternatives. There are only 9 people to battle them, and they have 5 superpowered individuals? What would be the plan of action? Moroku was being handled nicely by Guy and Neji. Sakuya was under the control of Kakashi and Tenten. Kaiza was being handled by Kankuro, but he was being forgiving because Kaiza was sort of assisting them. Tamari and Kazuya were engaged in combat. They could eliminate all of the new recruits if Lee joined Tamari, Sasuke joined Kankuro, and Naruto joined Guy and Neji. Hold on a second. Only 4 of them exist. The 5th one is nowhere to be found. Alright, 2 of them are likely female based on their names. Sakuya, one of the females, had mind control abilities. The final one possessed the unidentified powers. Kankuro, the girl you were fighting, is that? Points to Sakuya, her. Sasuke rushed over to Kankuro to tell the others what he had discovered. Kankuro said, "No, the other girl, where the hell is she?" as he ducked under a kick. Sakuya was kicked back slightly by Sasuke after he blocked one of her blows. He responded with, "Do you remember the abilities of the other girl?" "No, I can't remember much about what she did," Kankuro replied. Sasuke replied, "Thanks anyway." Lee approached and asked Tamari while Sasuke was asking Kankuro. Regretfully, she was also unaware. "What did you find?" asked Naruto as they returned to Gaara's location. Lee and Sasuke both simultaneously said, "Nothing." "Kami, damn it. We have to find out what Kagura can do." Naruto screamed as he punched the ground. The 3 genin were suddenly raised by an unidentified force. The ground shook as all 3 of them were instantly smashed to the ground. The boy with the lavender hair exclaimed, "What the hell was that?" According to Sasuke, it seemed like one of Ryu's abilities. As the 3 stood up, they were all pushed backward into the debris that served as the base by an unidentified force. Upon rising, Sasuke muttered, "Yep. Definitely Ryu." Naruto replied, "No, I don't think it was. That felt like one of Kenji's punches." Lee turned to Naruto and replied, "There's no way that was Kenji. I saw how bad you whooped his ass, Naruto. His flesh was burned off, there's no way that he could come back." The only way he could come back is if he had either your healing ability, or Toguro's regeneration, both of which are impossible. Actually, it's not that impossible, a voice said abruptly. The three genin boys turned and saw a figure. That individual was Toguro's height. His hair was a mixture of black and green. His hair was as long as Kenji's, and he had a goatee similar to Ryu's. He possessed two scars, one similar to Ryu's and one similar to Toguro's. His voice sounded like a bad mashup of Toguro, Ryu, Kenji, and another person. The fourth voice had a feminine tone to it. The fact that the person was floating 2 feet off the ground, however, was the biggest shock. After examining the traits of their new enemy, Sasuke remarked, Gaisa, I think I know Kagura's abilities now. Lee gave the individual a scowl. He wanted to hear from him to make sure, but he had a pretty good idea of who it was. Who the hell are you? The object laughed and said, my name is Toguryuji. Thanks to the abilities of Kagura, I now have the super strength and speed of Kenji, the cellular regeneration of Toguro, and the chakra control and capacity of Ryu. I have all their strengths, but none of their weaknesses. Thanks to that, I will be your executioner. Just before they were blasted back by Ryu's chakra wall attack, the three boys assumed a fighting stance. The boys recovered rapidly and flew at the creature. Naruto struck the conglomerate across the face to start. Naruto noticed the thing simply grinning at him as he looked up at him. Naruto narrowed his eyes and began to strike the merged entity with punch after punch. Naruto's punches all landed, but none of them caused any harm. The merged entity simply smirked at him while standing erect. Naruto was knocked back to the other two genin after he withdrew his hand and gave him a backhand across the face. I guess that makes it my turn, Lee remarked. Lee made an attempt and charged at Ryuji, striking him in the face with a leaf hurricane. Toguryuji easily avoided the kick by simply leaning his head back. He kicked Lee back to the other two after blocking all of Lee's kicks. After that, Sasuke launched himself at Ryuji. Each attack was deflected despite trying punch after punch and combo after combo. Ryuji simply blasted Sasuke with a wall of chakra, knocking him back when he attempted a spinning heel kick. Naruto stated, if we attack together, we'll probably have a better shot of taking him out. The three genin attempted to attack the conglomerate in 3 different ways after observing the other two nod in agreement, with Lee in front of Toguro and the other two genin at a 120-degree angle from him. The three genin formed a circle around him. Each of them charged at Ryuji and launched an assault. With a barrage of punches, Naruto and Sasuke charged in, making Ryuji attempt to block their blows. Lee was at the front, kicking Ryuji's torso and upper body. However, each blow they dealt Toguryuji was instantly repaired, so their efforts were in vain. Naruto was somewhat astonished to see his ability in action. In less than 50 seconds, they were able to effortlessly repair every blow, hit, and piece of damage they caused. Naruto was curious after witnessing this ability in action. What sort of scientists work at Hydra? Sasuke instructed them to leap back after observing that their attacks were ineffective. However, attempting to reorganize while on defense began to reopen old wounds. Naruto's wounds had already healed, so he was the only one not injured. While defending himself, Sasuke remarked, guys, we gotta do something different. Nothing we do is working. Any attack we do, he just heals from it. Naruto replied, if you have an idea Sasuke, I'd love to hear it. Lee replied, guys, we gotta do something. If we could cut him from Toguro's abilities, we could beat him. How the hell do we do that? Asked Naruto. No idea, said Sasuke. Fuck it, exclaimed Naruto, fed up with playing defense, and launched an assault on Ryuji. Ryuji was able to stop all of Naruto's attacks with ease. Haha. Is this all you got? No wonder you couldn't beat us when we were 4 people. Now that we're 1, what will you do? Ryuji said, laughing and making fun of Naruto. Despite Ryuji's jeering, Naruto boosted his attack strength. Regretfully, all attacks continued to be either blocked or had their damage repaired. What the devil is he doing? Is he healing those wounds with chakra or what? Perhaps he is. Naruto flipped backwards to where the others were tending to their wounds after ducking under Ryuji's kick. Naruto said, guys, I'm gonna go back in and attack. I want you guys to sense his chakra levels. If they're going down, that means he's using chakra to heal those wounds and maybe we might be able to force him to deplete his chakra reserves. Sasuke asked, and if you're wrong? While maintaining eye contact with Naruto. According to Naruto, then Kami help us. Naruto became a Super Saiyan once more, channeling all of his energy into his body. But it was a little painful this time. Damn, I'm beginning to feel the effects of Super Saiyan's physical strain and the Kyuubi's chakra taint. I can't let this go just yet. I will have to overcome it. Ryuji glared as he watched Naruto change. He heard 4 voices arguing in his head. Each personality in the body had its own voice. Kenji replied, "See, I told you dumbasses not to let him power up." Toguro's voice was saying, "Why are you stuck on that?" When he was a Super Saiyan, he barely landed a killing blow. He used a coward's way out and fought in a plane you couldn't. A fresh female voice replied, "Yeah honey. Now that we have my flying ability, he can't use that advantage anymore. This body has all our powers. He can't possibly defeat us." Ryu replied, "I thought the same about the Uchiha boy. But look what happened to me. I don't think it was a good idea to let him get to Super Saiyan. Now he's 10 times stronger than before." Kenji replied, "At least. Now his hits will actually start to do some damage. We can't be going as easy as we have been." "Okay then." Toguro said, "Ruin a guy's fun." They were all focused on the fight and could hardly stop Naruto's fist with their hand. Their hand bones were broken by Naruto's fist, but they were able to mend 10 seconds later. Naruto went for a kick, but his blow struck Toguro in the side, knocking him out. Naruto let out a loud sigh as he saw Ryuji stop himself in midair. He took off after him and engaged Ryuji in a fast-paced battle. Naruto was winning at first. He managed to strike Ryuji's neck and knees several times, allowing his body to recuperate. Naruto began attacking more frequently after realizing that his attacks were taking up Ryuji's time. However, Ryuji attacked Naruto's chest repeatedly in retaliation. As Naruto's strength began to decline, he kicked Ryuji in the chest after blocking his subsequent blow. When Naruto saw that Ryuji was bending over from the force of the attack, he struck him in the back with a double-handed axe, knocking him to the ground. Naruto flew to Lee and Sasuke after he fell. "What did you guys get?" inquired Naruto. Lee responded, "Which do you want first, the good news or the bad news?" The words, "I don't give a damn. Tell me," were spoken quickly by Naruto. Lee stated, "The good news is that his chakra is healing him. Also, his chakra is fueling their fusion. If we deplete his reserves, we could defeat him." Sasuke intervened and stated, "Bad news is that the amount of chakra he has makes Kakashi's reserves look like Sakura's. We would need to completely break him if we want this to work." Naruto was saying, "This is not good. I'm starting to feel the effects of being in Super Saiyan. I don't think I can hold this up for much longer." Lee replied, "If all of us work together, you won't have to." They turned to face Toguro, who was hauling himself out of the hole he had made for himself. When Ryuji saw the 3 warriors, he screamed and ran toward them. Knowing they would need it for the impending battle, the 3 boys pumped up to their full power output. Their battle began with Sasuke. Sasuke dashed at Ryuji and ducked under his punch with ease. Sasuke moved behind him and gave Ryuji a back punch. A few seconds later, Lee gave Ryuji a kick to the head. Naruto slammed Ryuji into the ground after knocking him backwards, and he was unable to stop himself. Naruto landed over him and delivered 3 punches to Ryuji's face. An unseen force stopped his fist on the 3rd punch. Naruto attempted to punch Ryuji with his other fist, but it was also stopped. Naruto tried to retreat because he didn't like the direction things were taking, but he was unable to do so. Naruto moaned inwardly as he saw Toguro smirk, thinking, "I do not like where this is going." A moment later, Togoro's chakra blast sent Naruto flying backwards. Ryuji got back up and could see Sasuke and Lee coming toward him. Ryuji laughed and swatted them both away like flies, blocking their attacks. Ryuji began to play with the 3 warriors, taunting them continuously. Naruto said, "He's toying with us," while glaring at Ryuji. Lee replied, "Well, what the hell are we supposed to do? We can't beat him, no matter how much we hit him." Ryuji hurried the 3 fighters, preparing to put an end to this. Sasuke was fortunately prepared for him. Ninpo, Kanashibari no Jutsu. Sasuke was able to temporarily paralyze Ryuji by pointing at him. The paralysis, however, would not endure. "Blast him, quickly!" was screamed by Sasuke as he began to lose control of Ryuji. Flying beneath Togoro's body, Naruto began to channel as much energy as he could. "This is my final opportunity." Lee did the same above Ryuji. They both simultaneously scolded Ryuji, pointing their hands at him. Kamehameha, Gaelic gun, fire. Ryuji's body was in the center of their blasts. The 2 young Saiyans dedicated all of their energy to the attack, leaving them exhausted, and they lit up the night sky for miles around. They fell to the ground, barely able to prevent themselves from colliding, as they cut the attack's power. "You know he isn't dead, right?" Sasuke said as he landed beside them. Naruto replied, yeah, but now we got a little time to come up with a strategy. 5 minutes later, Toguro stood up using the Kamehameha and Gaelic gun's combined powers. He was nearly destroyed by the attack, but he managed to gather himself. We've lost a quarter of our total chakra. We've got to be more careful, Toguro thought to himself. The always self. Assured Kenji declared, big deal. They wasted about half their energy in fighting us. We've got this thing won. Kagura replied, I agree with Kenji. We can't be stopped by those snot-nosed punks. Toguro replied, don't underestimate them. I underestimated the lavender-haired one's dad when I first met him. When he beat me, I was damn near dead. And seeing as I'm damn near immortal, that's saying something. Ryu replied, let's just kill them quickly so the bossman can pay us. The foursome agreed and focused on battling the three genin, but they were nowhere to be seen. They discovered Lee sitting in front of a boulder 50 feet away. Naruto sat on top of the boulder, smirking, his legs crossed, while Sasuke leaned on the side, gazing at the spot where Ryuji had materialized. He stated, we didn't expect it to take you so long to find us. Sasuke replied, but now that you're here, we can start round 2. Lee nodded, but remained silent. Naruto and Lee got to their feet. Each of the three genin reached their full power. Naruto switched to Super Saiyan. Sasuke activated his Sharingan, and Lee went false Super Saiyan X10. With the intention of defeating Ryuji, the three boys then started to run in his direction. Ryuji simply lowered himself into a combat stance and prepared for combat. He was immediately surrounded by the three boys. He stated, going for this tactic again, boys? I'm very disappointed. Ryuji simply formed a circular sphere of chakra around himself and then rapidly expanded it so it would slam into the boys as the boys moved in to punch him simultaneously. They rose in a puff of smoke as the sphere crashed into them. Ryuji was so angry at only hitting a handful of shadow clones that he didn't realize until it was too late that 3 beams of ki were pointed at his chest. He was knocked a few meters away after being blasted by the beams. The 3 boys were hurrying him when he got better. When Sasuke stepped forward and punched him in the face, he was unable to block Lee's intended kick. When his defense was down, Lee and Naruto rushed him and kicked him in the stomach. The Demi Saiyans simply landed an uppercut each in his chest, knocking him skyward as he was hunched over from their attack. Sasuke began performing hand seals before Ryuji had time to recover in the air. Fire style, flamethrower jutsu. Ryuji was completely engulfed in a torrent of flame that Sasuke exhaled. When the flames subsided, Sasuke attempted to strike Ryuji with a punch, but Ryuji failed to block Naruto and Lee's 2 double-handed axe smashes across the back of his head. Sasuke kicked him in the lower back, hastening his fall to the ground. Sasuke attempted to strike him after he landed, but Ryuji managed to swiftly roll out of his way. As soon as Sasuke retreated from him, Lee and Naruto began to barrage him with ki blasts, forcing him to contend with them. After the ki blast onslaught was over, the 3 genin warriors attacked Ryuji, forcing him to dodge once more. He utilized his chakra to stop the warriors in their tracks, utilizing Ryu's abilities to manipulate chakras flawlessly. Then he twisted them so they crashed into the earth. Then he began performing hand seals. He exclaimed, fire style, fire dragon flame missile, after he was done. The dragon bomb of flame burst as it rushed in the direction of the 3. Ryuji carried on with hand seals, aware that they were still alive. Earth style, mud river jutsu. He cried out, and Ryuji's mouth opened, releasing a whole river of mud. The river of mud fell like a waterfall from Ryuji's position in the sky. There, Ryuji hovered and spat mud at the genin. He felt a hand with a vice grip on his throat just when he thought everything was fine. When Toguro saw Lee hovering before him, he swore in his head. Lee kicked him in the face after punching him in the stomach, knocking him back. After Ryuji recovered, Naruto struck him from behind, knocking him down even more, and then Sasuke knocked him to the ground. As Ryuji stood up again, he watched them all come down slowly and land next to him. He took off after Naruto upon seeing them, but was taken aback. Instead of moving at his usual superhuman speed, he was moving at a normal pace. Upon reaching Naruto, he delivered a punch to the face, only to be confronted by yet another surprise. His hand ached. He was just as frail as the average person. After giving it some thought, he attempted to use Ryu's powers but discovered that they were also ineffective. Toguro shouted, "What the hell did you do to me?" as he turned to face Sasuke. Sasuke grinned. They carried out their plan flawlessly. Rewind. Flying beneath Togoro's body, Naruto began to channel as much energy as he could. This is my final opportunity. Lee did the same above Ryuji. They both simultaneously scolded Ryuji, pointing their hands at him. Kamehameha, Gaelic gun, fire. Ryuji's body was in the center of their blasts. The two young Demi Saiyans dedicated all of their energy to the attack, leaving them exhausted, and they lit up the night sky for miles around. They fell to the ground, barely able to prevent themselves from colliding, as they cut the attack's power. "You know he isn't dead, right?" Sasuke said as he landed beside them. Naruto replied, "Yeah, but now we got a little time to come up with a strategy." To himself, Lee began to murmur, "We need to cut him from his chakra." Sasuke began to mutter as well, "His reserves are too high to drain." "If we try to drain him, we'll die," Naruto muttered. After exchanging glances, they both exclaimed, "I got it." Lee responded, "We need to get him to that recruit from the Hydra. What was his name, Kaiza?" Sasuke replied, "We need to draw Toguro to him, then he'll defuse. And when he does, we'll finish him," declared Naruto. According to Lee, now the problem is getting Ryuji over there. He's probably still healing from that attack. Naruto replied, "He is. I can sense him. He must have taken a lot of damage. He's using a lot more chakra than usual to heal." Sasuke replied, "Speaking of healing, I think now would be a great time to use the senzu beans. They'll really come in handy. Especially if we have to fight more people." Lee replied, "You're right, Sasuke, but for now, we'll just wait for him to get back up. When he does, we'll draw him into Kaiza's field. We know Kaiza's abilities work within a 20-foot range." Naruto replied, "But thanks to Kazuya it's boosted by 10 times that much." Sasuke replied, "That shouldn't be that far. From what I sense, they're still fighting. And we're only 300 feet away from Kaiza, so the strategy should work." The genin experienced a surge of energy after eating the senzu beans. They recovered from their wounds and regained their full power. Then they began discussing the details of the plan. Flashback end. As they explained their plan to Ryuji, Sasuke and the boys were grinning. Sasuke continued, "And because we've been standing in his field for a while now, your fusion ability should be wearing off in 3, 2, 1, now." Sasuke was right to count it since the creature dispersed as soon as he said, "Now." Kenji, Ryu, and Toguro were standing there with a new girl who had green hair. Lee continued, "And we found out that your abilities are fueled by chakra. Now that your chakra is negated, this should be easy. According to Kenji, your abilities are gone also." The three boys grinned together and suddenly levitated to frighten Kenji. Kenji exclaimed, But how?" as his eyes grew to the size of dinner plates. "Chakra doesn't fuel our abilities," stated Sasuke. Then the boys lost interest. Naruto's left fist was in Kenji's stomach when they phased in. Sasuke's foot was in Ryu's face. Lee's left hand was clenched into a chop and knocked Toguro unconscious, and his right fist was in Kagura's stomach. Sasuke replied, "Without their powers, they can't fight. They depended on their powers so much that when they were taken away, they were worthless. Just like my clan and the Sharingan." Lee replied, "You think we should kill these guys?" Sasuke replied, "No, they're not a threat to us now. We can leave them." In an attempt to shift the conversation, Naruto said, "Come on guys, we gotta go help the others. They might need our help." Then the three genin flew into the air to where they thought the others were. When they got to the scene, they noticed that 2 more people had joined the spectators' spot. As they tended to their injuries, Neji and Kankuro had begun the fight. When you thought about it, it was clear. Neji's gentle fist was completely useless because of the ability combination of Kazuya and Kaiza, which prevented him from using chakra at all. In order to fight, Kankuro employed puppets, which he animated using chakra. No puppets meant no chakra, and a dead Kankuro meant no puppets. In other words, Kaiza, Kazuya, Sakuya, and Moroku faced off against Kakashi, Guy, Tenten, and Temari. Kakashi was able to mimic some of Guy's strong fist taijutsu technique even though he lacked his Sharingan and its 1,000 duplicate jutsus. It was sufficient to get by, but not enough to become an expert at it. Temari was skilled at fighting with her battle fan whether or not she had chakra, and Tenten was a master of weapons. Tenten and Kaiza engaged in a struggle of strength as the three flew in the direction of the battle zone. "Is it okay if I jump in and help, Tenten-chan?" asked Lee as he moved directly between them. "Sure, but you need a sword," Tenten said, blushing slightly. "No problem," Lee said, extending his right hand. He focused ki into his hand, tucked his thumb in, and straightened his fingers. He kept going until Tenten's sword was the length of the resulting ki mass. His words were, "Here's my sword." After a moment of surprise, Tenten managed to stutter out, "Okay then." After that, the two joined forces, surpassing Kaiza in numbers. However, Kaiza was a master of the blade, just like his brother Kazuya. Although Tenten was skilled with one, he was not nearly as good as Kazuya and Kaiza. However, Lee was able to assist her in somewhat balancing the score. After a short while, the battle shifted in their favor. Lee stepped up and kicked Kaiza in the chest, knocking him back 2 meters as Tenten and Kaiza locked blades once more. Then, with his key sword raised above his head, Lee charged forward and leapt into the air. When Kaiza's sword made contact with Lee's key sword melted Kaiza's sword like a hot knife through butter. Kaiza attempted to attack Lee by cutting a horizontal slash across Lee's abdomen. Tenten charged in behind Lee and slashed Kaiza's stomach horizontally, causing the top half of her sword to fall to the ground. Kaiza's gaze expanded. In a moment, he grabbed his cut stomach and fell, unconscious and almost dead. Naruto fought alongside Sakuya and Temari. Kaiza's ability to negate chakras prevented Sakuya from controlling people's thoughts, but she was still able to use her hands effectively in combat. "Need a hand?" Naruto asked Temari after dropping by Sakuya. Temari replied, "No, but you're welcome to step back and watch." Instead of arguing, Naruto simply moved aside and allowed Temari to engage in combat. After some time in which the fight remained stalemated, Temari managed to use her fan to strike Sakuya in the stomach. Temari hesitated for a moment before slamming her fan into Sakuya's head. There, she was simply motionless. As Temari turned to face Naruto and spread her fan, he had to dodge, wondering what had happened. She then shouted, "Wind style," cutting whirlwind, and blew what appeared to be a twister at him while waving her fan in a big circle. Naruto was struck because he was unable to dodge. Naruto was launched high into the air by the attack, where the winds it created began to cut him. Naruto was fine at the end, although he had a few minor cuts. She shot off another one before he could do anything else. Naruto was struck by the attack once more, suffering even more damage this time. Naruto fled to the left when he noticed her preparing to blast him once more. Sakuya must have been able to use her chakra again. Kaiza must have been eliminated by Lee and Tenten. One down, then. Here's another now. Temari was about to launch another attack when Naruto turned to face her, but Naruto had prepared ahead of time. He positioned an afterimage for Temari to strike. Sakuya lost sight of him as the attack went through the afterimage. Sakuya was knocked unconscious when Naruto effortlessly reappeared behind her and punched her in the back of the head. Upon doing so, he observed Temari return to her usual self. He picked her up, explained the situation, and led her to the area where the remaining 2 new recruits were being fought by the other fighters. Everybody was able to use their chakra again after Kaiza was removed. They all surrounded Kazuya and Miroku and were going to murder them. Thinking he would leave everyone else behind, Kazuya grabbed Miroku and left before anyone could move. He was confronted by Naruto and Sasuke before he had even gotten 10 feet. However, the two were punched in the side of the head before further action could be taken. As they looked in its direction, they noticed a figure standing there who resembled Kenji but had black eyes and green hair. "How did this happen?" Naruto asked, his eyes widening. Sasuke was saying, "Kagura must have fused herself with Kenji. But why didn't she add Toguro and Ryu to it? If they were awake, she should have added them." The combination of Kagura and Kenji began to attack the two. Sasuke and Naruto were being pushed on the ropes by the conglomerate using Kenji's speed ability. But the ability wore off before it could do any serious harm. Sasuke and Naruto began double-teaming the two right away. Sasuke punched them in the chest, and Naruto punched them in the jaw. Sasuke then delivered a high kick to the abdomen, while Naruto delivered one to the face. Naruto phased in behind Kagura and Kenji before they could recover. Sasuke kicked them higher after he kicked them in his direction. After Kagura, Kenji recovered from their trip, they were seized by the waist from behind. They were flipped upside down and began to be flipped before they could comprehend what was happening. They were constantly aiming for the ground while spinning at a tremendous speed. They were grabbed and slammed headfirst into the ground a few seconds later. The person who slammed them appeared to be unharmed. The person who slammed them grabbed their foot and tossed them in a different direction. They managed to recover after skimming the ground. They noticed Lee standing there. Naruto was standing there when they turned to their left. Sasuke then touched down to their right. Then the three joined forces to attack. Kagura, Kenji was easily defeated by them, but before they could do much more harm, Kagura, Kenji lifted into the air and vanished. After that, they heard the merger say, "You idiots fell for it. I'm just the distraction, not the big part of the plan." Kenji, Kagura grabbed Kazuya's arm, who had Miroku on his shoulder, before the three could take any action. They then used their speed ability. They were able to carry Kaiza and Moroku into the nearby forest thanks to their speed ability. They regrouped with the other Hydra members there. Kenji, Kagura attacked the group with the sole purpose of diverting their attention from the other Hydra members. By keeping their focus on them, Toguro and Ryu were able to alert the other members and escape. After regrouping, the 8 of them took off, leaving no trace that they had ever been there. They were wondering what that was about when they returned to the group. They quickly realized what had happened when Tenten brought up the fact that Kaiza had vanished. Kakashi replied, "Don't worry, we'll get them later. They're not part of our mission right now. But since the mission is complete, we can return to our home villages." With relief that their night was now over, the people nodded. They wanted to get a little sleep before the lengthy drive home because it was almost dawn. They hurriedly bid the Suna trio farewell the following morning and set out for home. Naruto determined to pay Temari a visit in Suna at some point. Before the Chunin exams, 2 weeks prior, Naruto was spending time with the Suna siblings in Sanagakure no Sato. Naruto had been spending more time with them since they went on a joint mission to Bird Country a few months ago. Well, more like Temari than them. They had been spending a lot more time together ever since he persuaded her to go on a date with him. At the moment, he was attempting to teach Gaara how to fight. Gaara hadn't been employing a real fighting style because he was constantly using his sand abilities. Gaara lost to that Hydra agent in Bird Country because he was unable to fight to save his life. Naruto wanted to make that change. Naruto began learning more about Gaara's defense after witnessing her abilities. In addition to the fact that his sand shielded him, Gaara always wore an inch-thick layer of sand on his skin, even while he slept. He gained some strength from that, but not much. Gaara was instructed by Naruto to use his sand to thicken and weigh his skin sand layer. That would make him heavier, and his muscles would become stronger throughout his body because of his Jinchuriki healing factor. Naruto was at a loss for ideas regarding Gaara's sand protection. Gaara wouldn't learn any taijutsu that way, but he could move faster than the sand. He would only receive a beating. Fortunately for them all, Gaara's control over Shukaku's chakra had been increasing. He meditated daily and gradually became more in control. Right now, he could manage the sand, but that was about it. Naruto came up with an even better idea as a result. The sand could react more quickly and be more effective if Gaara could move more quickly. Naruto and Gaara had been working on that for the past 2 months following the Bird Country mission. With one hand, Gaara was now able to lift his brother. Sand was not necessary for him to fight, but he still used it to maintain the appearance that he was worthless without it. Naruto observed a significant increase in speed, strength, and inventiveness with the sand, but Gaara's sand defense was still ineffective against him at Super Saiyan. Temari was observing them, but her mood was not as joyful as her brother's. She was aware of what would occur at the Chunin exams shortly. Her brothers did the same. However, they were unable to speak to Naruto because they were Sanagakure shinobi. She grew closer to Naruto during these months than she had ever been with a non-family member. He had protected Gaara from the influence of the Shukaku. He gave Gaara a friend, something he sorely needed. Were they to say something like, "Thanks for saving my brother, but I'm going to attack and kill you now?" Temari made an effort, but she was no longer able to deny it. Sanagakure was despised by Temari. Her father's use of her brother as a weapon was something she detested. She detested how he was shunned by the populace. She would leave this village and never come back if she had the option. She only gave a damn about Kankuro and Gaara, the only people there. Gaara was the issue. His goal was to disprove the villagers. He was determined to show them that he was not a demon. She didn't leave the village as a result. Since she was 2 years old, she had been raising both of her brothers, and she had no intention of leaving them now. If only she could somehow bring them both along. She had no idea that Gaara was experiencing the same issue. Naruto swiftly became his best friend in the 6 months that he knew him. He kept him safe from Shukaku's insanity. There was no way he could turn around and attack his village, was there? Then Gaara decided what he would do. His father be damned, he would be honest with Naruto and the Hokage about Sanagakure's attack during the Chunin exams. Naruto, Sasuke, and Lee had been training hard for the 2 weeks leading up to the battle. A month ago, Kakashi informed Sasuke about the exams, but she kept Sakura and Naruto in the dark, hoping they would be unprepared and fail. Fortunately for them, Sasuke informed both of them. Naruto had spent a lot of time training. Sakura had been perusing magazines in an attempt to decide what to purchase. The time had finally arrived for them to take the test. At the Shinobi Academy, where the first portion of the test was being administered, Naruto and Sasuke met Sakura prepared. A group of genin were gathered around a door when they entered the building. 2 males were positioned before the door. They were preventing anyone from trying to enter. Naruto sensed a genjutsu right away, and it appeared that Sasuke did too. However, Sakura made the decision to shout, "Hey guys, there's a genjutsu on the door. We're only on the second floor." It's clear that many of the genin heard her voice. They all turned and ascended the stairs. "Nice going. Flat chest." Naruto turned around and remarked, "Now we'll have more competition." They saw the other genin in the competition as they entered the right room, one floor up. They recognized a few faces as well. "Hey Naruto, how's it going?" He turned to his left and saw Kiba, Team 8, and the other rookies there. He concluded, "Pretty good, Kiba, considering that I'll be a Chunin after this competition." Shikamaru replied, "So the rest of you guys are here too? This is so troublesome." Choji responded, "You think everything is troublesome, Shikamaru. According to Shikamaru, that's because it is." Kiba replied, "It doesn't matter how troublesome it'll be. I don't have any competition in this exam." Naruto replied, "Kiba, remember that tournament we had a few months ago where you thought I would be a cakewalk to beat, but I kicked your ass? Don't be surprised if history decides to repeat itself in this exam." A silver-haired man approached them as they were conversing and said, "I think you guys should keep it down. Some of the guys look angry. That team from the hidden Rain Village looks especially mad." All of the Rain Village genin were glaring at Naruto when he turned to face them. Naruto, who enjoys a challenge, turned to face them and shouted, "Pussies," as loudly as he could. The Rain Village genin simply appeared to become more irate. "I don't care about Rain Village genin." And Naruto turned to face the silver-haired man. "They're not that strong anyway." The man with the silver hair remarked, "That Iwagakure team looks pretty pissed off at you also." The silver-haired man was pointing, and Naruto turned to see that 3 or so teams of Iwa ninja were staring at him with daggers. Naruto replied, "And I should care. Why? Iwagakure no Sato is a bunch of weaklings who try to take out their enemies by numbers and not skill. I can probably beat all 3 of those teams with my hands tied behind my back." According to Sasuke, it's true, he can. "Just who are you anyway?" asked Lee. The individual replied, "I'm Kabuto Yakushi. I'm from the Leaf Village, like you. This guy smells like snakes. Watch out," the Kyuubi warned Naruto. "How many times have you taken this test?" asked Naruto. According to Kabuto, "This will be my 7th try." Sasuke summarized everyone's thoughts, "So basically, you suck." Kabuto replied, "Maybe. But my years of being in this competition have allowed me to collect information on my opponents. You guys know of anyone?" Kiba responded, "Try mine. I'll probably have the best stats of everyone in this room. Pull up Naruto Uzumaki's, Sasuke Uchiha's, and Rock Lee's just to compare." Kabuto took out the cards and began displaying them after saying, "Okay then. Kiba Inuzuka, 13 years old, genin, Konohagakure no Sato. Parents are Sume Inuzuka and Kenpachi Inuzuka. Teammates are Hinata Hyuga and Shino Aburame, along with his ninja dog Akamaru. Successfully completed 20D ranks and 2C ranks." Kiba replied, "Huh? Mine are the best of anyone in this room." "Hold up a minute," Kabuto said. Then Kabuto produced a blank one. He stated, "I don't have anyone named Rock Lee. Let me try again." Kabuto said, "Oh, here it is. Somehow his name must have changed. Lee Briefs, 13 years old, Konohagakure no Sato. Parents are Katrina Romanji and Vegeta Briefs. Junior teammates are Hinata Hyuga and Shino Aburame. Successfully completed 50D ranks, 12C ranks, and 2B ranks. Recall that I mentioned Vegeta Jr. was using the name Jufu Lee, but I changed that to Vegeta Briefs Jr. and changed Lee's last name to Briefs." According to Lee, beat that. Kabuto stated, "Sasuke Uchiha, 13 years old, genin, Konohagakure no Sato. Parents are Makoto Uchiha and Fugaku Uchiha. Teammates are Naruto Uzumaki and Sakura Haruno. Successfully completed 70D ranks, 18C ranks, 1B rank, and 1A rank." Kiba replied, "What? How did you complete that many?" Sasuke stated, "Me and Naruto went to the Hokage and requested to a few solo missions." Naruto and Sasuke had made the decision to make an agreement with the Hokage because Kakashi hardly ever gave them a D rank each week. They were now permitted to take a few C ranks as well as solo D ranks. "What about the A rank mission?" asked Kiba. Sasuke stated, "Our first C rank got bumped up to an A rank because the informant didn't tell us everything." According to Kabuto, lastly, Naruto Uzumaki. Parents are unknown. Teammates are Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno. Successfully completed 70D ranks, 18C ranks, and 2B ranks, and 1A rank. "How did you complete another B rank?" asked Sasuke. Naruto replied, "Remember when we were in Wave and I disappeared for a long time?" "Yeah," said Sasuke. Naruto continued, I went to the land of wind and helped the Yondaime Kage's children bust up a human trafficking ring. I think they might have counted that as a B rank on my record, but I don't know. A scarred man rushed into the room and ordered everyone to sit down before anyone else could say anything more. He introduced himself as the Chunin exam proctor, Ibiki Morino. He explained the exam's rules to the ninja and assigned them to their seats. They had only an hour to finish the test, and they would be eliminated if they were found to have cheated 5 times. They wanted them to cheat, and Naruto quickly saw through the rules. The problem was that they needed to avoid detection. Naruto chose to play dirty as a result. One of his pouches contained a smoke bomb. He discreetly reached for the smoke bomb. Then, in an attempt to assign blame for the smoke to the person in front of him, he tossed it beneath his desk. When the smoke cleared and the man and Naruto were out of sight, Naruto made 3 Kage Bunshin change into flies and began flying around the room in search of answers. The information was revealed to Naruto by the dispelling of the shadow clones. He completed his test and bided his time. Ibiki made a final attempt to persuade everyone to give up. Naruto turned around to see Sakura raising her hand. Being cautious not to shatter the desk, Naruto got to his feet and slammed his fist down on it. He shouted, "You think you scare me, Morino? Ninja have to face these kinds of decisions every day. I'm a rookie and I know that. I knew the consequences when I signed up for this job, so you can't scare me into quitting." Those who left didn't have the stomach to take this job to the next level. Sakura began sitting up straighter and didn't raise her hand after Naruto's motivational speech, which made it possible for them to proceed to the next section of the test with their proctor. As Anko had instructed, the teams reached the Forest of Death entrance the following day. Anko replied, "Okay, now that you're here, we can start. This is the Forest of Death, crawling with hundreds of animals that would love nothing more than to eat you for dinner. Each team will receive either a Heaven Scroll or an Earth Scroll. In the 5 days that you have, you must get both scrolls and get to the tower in the middle of the forest or you will fail. If you try to peek at the scrolls before the 5-day period is up, you will be disqualified. By the end of this, there will be only half of you left at the most. You're gonna find out why this is called the Forest of Death." Kiba began to scream, "Oh, please. I could probably get through this without a scratch." Kiba's cheek was suddenly slit by a kunai that whizzed past. Behind him, Anko emerged and began licking the blood from the wound. She replied, "Cocky little brat. Huh. I like that. But you should know that people like you are usually the first ones to die." Behind Anko, a woman in a grass hite.8 said, "Here's your kunai, Anko.san." Anko pointed to her hand, which held a kunai and was just an inch away from piercing the grass woman's stomach, and said, "Thanks, but you should watch out who you sneak up behind. It might get you killed." Anko returned to her original position in front of the genin after grabbing her kunai. She continued, "Before you go into the Forest of Death, I want each of you to sign this waiver form. This form says that the Hidden Leaf Village is not responsible for your deaths. If you want to compete, you must sign this form and then go to the booth to my right and get a scroll. Report to one of the 44 gates around this place. When I say start, the gates will open and you will be allowed in." Everybody moved forward and picked up a packet. Each of them received a scroll after signing their names, and they all reported to a door. Gaara and his group were headed to Gate 32, while Team 7 was headed to Gate 16. Gaara replied, "Naruto, meet me at Gate 32 immediately after the test has started. We have to talk." Naruto passed the message to Sasuke, wondering what they could discuss, while Naruto went to talk to Gaara. Sasuke consented to take Sakura with him. Sasuke and Sakura moved forward as the gates opened, but Naruto flew into the air and circled the gate's perimeter until he reached the number 32. The entire sand crew was waiting for him when he arrived. "What's up, Gaara?" he asked. Gaara responded, "Naruto, we have a big problem. Now, before you say anything, I want you to hear me out. I got something bad to tell you. 7 months ago, Sanagakure entered a secret alliance with Otogakure no Sato to attack the Leaf Village during the final stages of the Chunin exam. Tamari spoke out, stating, if we said anything, we could have been executed. Our sensei Baki is very loyal to our father, and if he learned we were committing an act of treason by telling you this, Baki would tell our father and we would be executed. That's why we didn't tell you at the Bird Country mission because he was there. When we were in Wind Country after you saved Gaara, we didn't say anything because the people who were around us could have been eavesdropping. This is the only place that we can tell you." Naruto replied, "What do you want me to do with this information?" Tamari replied, "Tell the Hokage. The Leaf Village has to get ready for this war." Naruto replied, "Gaara, I thought you loved your village. Why would you commit an act of treason like this?" Gaara replied, "You're right, Naruto, I do love my village." But my father has been running the village into the ground. We found evidence that he cheated on our mom with at least 15 different women. He's been using the village's revenue to pay off those women from coming forward and to keep them quiet about the fact that he knocked up at least 7 of them. Since he's the cage, the whores demanded huge prices for their silence. Because of that, Sanagakure no Sato is poorer than ever. Our father is burying our village alive and we have to stop him. He sounds like Tiger Woods, doesn't he? Naruto let out a huge gasp. Okay then, I'll tell the Hokage. But I'll tell you this, Gaara. Any Suna shinobi that attacks our village will die. I can stop myself from killing them, but I can't stop the other ninja. Kankuro stated, all we're asking for is that you help us kick our father off the position of cage, and that you don't kill the soldiers when they give up. That, I can do. Naruto said. Gaara replied, then I guess we have a deal. Thank you, Naruto. Naruto replied, no problem. Just meet me in the tower in a few days and we can go together. After that, Naruto took off in the direction of Sasuke. He arrived to find Sasuke engaged in combat with a group of rain nin. Naruto read their energy and was ready to intervene. Sasuke had no trouble eliminating them because they were weaklings. Sasuke kicked them twice in the chest after dodging one of their blows. Then he knocked him back with a punch to the face. Sasuke was grabbed from behind before he could take any further action. Sasuke jumped up just as the other rain team member was about to punch him, forcing the rain nin holding him to lean back in order to maintain his hold. The other rain nin was then kicked in the face by Sasuke. After landing, Sasuke flew backwards and crashed the rain nin into a tree using his key abilities. Then Sasuke spun around and gave the man 3 punches to the chest. Sasuke felt the man he kicked in the face was running toward him as he faced the man he had slammed into a tree. Sasuke performed a backflip, forcing the man to run beneath him when he was just a foot behind him. Sasuke kicked the man in the back after performing a 360-degree flip. Stumbling forward, the man struck his friend. One of them hurried Sasuke as the two stood up. Sasuke could feel the third man coming up behind him. After creating an afterimage, Sasuke stepped aside. The 2 men collided and were rendered unconscious. Sasuke hurried the last man away just as he was about to flee because he was scared. Sasuke pursued the man, jumped on his back, and caused him to fall Assassin's Creed style as he turned around and fled. The man was then knocked unconscious when Sasuke lifted his head and slammed it into the ground. Then, with the man on his shoulder, Sasuke returned to the clearing. Then Sasuke tossed him and his companions into the pile. He stated, I already checked him out. He doesn't have a scroll, but I took all his equipment. Sakura exclaimed, yes, Sasuke-kun. I knew you'd save me, she said. Naruto muttered, I wish you didn't, but we need her alive to pass this exam. Sasuke went ahead and examined the other rain nin. He stole their earth scroll and all of their gear. They already had an earth scroll, which was the issue. Sasuke put it in a pouch, got back together with Sakura and Naruto, and set off, searching for other groups. Kyuubi was scouting the area as they moved. To check for enemies or issues, he was using Naruto's ears and nose. He had been concerned about Naruto's health ever since he saw Kabuto. Naruto used his senses to detect the scent of snakes. They were summoned snakes, not just any snakes. A 50% chance was too close for the Kyuubi, and there were only 2 snake collars in the world. Naruto, listen. I used your senses and I smelled snakes around the forest, Kyuubi said, opening his connection with Naruto. Naruto was saying, Kyuubi, there's no way that Orochimaru is in the village. Maybe you smell the snakes that live here. Kyuubi replied, no, I know the smell of summoned snakes, and I smell them right now. Concerned, Naruto asked, well, what should I do? Tell Sasuke. If Orochimaru is here, you're gonna have to either run or fight. Do you think I can take him? Asked Naruto. Kyuubi responded, I've never seen Orochimaru fight. I only know him by reputation. But he's one of the Sannin. I wouldn't play around if I were you. Naruto ended his talk with Kyuubi and discussed what the Kyuubi had said with Sasuke in private. So, if Orochimaru comes, what do we do? Naruto replied, I don't know. There are 2 of us, but he's a Sannin. We have no idea what his abilities are or how strong he is. The most I know is that he can summon snakes. Sasuke replied, that's not much to go on. Unfortunately, I don't know any more than you. Naruto replied, why don't we think about this some other time? Let's get back to. A tremendous gust of wind struck Naruto from the right before he could finish speaking. To his left, Naruto flew hundreds of feet. Sakura and Sasuke were only spared because they were out of the blast's range and ahead of Naruto. With Naruto, Naruto landed a great distance from his starting point. Unfortunately, he was sprawled on a tree trunk close to the ground after flying through 2 trees. Naruto woke up with a headache. A rustling sounded behind him. A snake swallowed him whole before he could turn around. As Naruto lay in the snake's belly, all he could think was, what the hell happened to me? Alongside Sasuke. Sasuke saw a woman when he turned to face the direction of the large gust that had blown Naruto away. The female was laughing. With narrowed eyes, Sasuke uttered, "What the hell do you want?" She stated, "I know you have an earth scroll. Luckily for you, or me, I have a heaven scroll." Sasuke's eyes narrowed. He could tell this woman was troubled just by looking at her. He continued, "So, you didn't answer my question. What the hell do you want?" "I want your earth scroll. Also, I've never fought Uchiha before. I want to test myself against the might of the Sharingan." "If it's a fight you want, you found it," stated Sasuke. "I know, and to raise the stakes." Then the woman cocked her head back. Above her gaping mouth, she held the scroll. "Why'd I feel like I won't like what will happen next?" Sasuke thought. The woman swallowed the scroll after pushing it down her throat. She continued, "Now, this is more than about some scroll. The only way out of here is if one of us dies." Sasuke thought, this woman is ill. Why in the world did she do that? The reason Sasuke lost to Ryu previously was because he was too afraid of killing someone to use deadly attacks. He had the power but lacked the will to control his emotions, which is why he was not as good at taking lives as Naruto. "Are you afraid of dying, Sasuke?" the woman asked. "I don't think you've ever even been dead before. I'll show you." Even though they never went this far with the training, Sasuke could tolerate it, in part, because Vegeta taught them how to ignore certain amounts. Sasuke could have been insane, but he swore he saw the lady's eyes turn yellow with a slit in them, and she released an incredible amount of killing intent. Sakura fell to the ground in fear. Sasuke, who had been training with Naruto, Lee, and Vegeta for months, had unlocked the 3rd level of his Sharingan when the woman began to approach him. Seeing the woman's attack coming, he ducked under the punch and gave her an uppercut to the chin, then kicked her in the chest and began doing hand seals. Fire style. Jutsu with Phoenix Flowers. The woman ducked under Sasuke's fireballs and began performing hand seals herself. Shadow snakes hidden away. Sasuke.kun is a lot stronger than I anticipated. What caused this? I better plant the curse seal quickly before his friend comes back. He jumped over the snakes and kicked the woman in the face, then landed 3 more punches to her stomach before twisting around and trying to connect his heel with her jaw, but she ducked. The woman became enraged and knocked Sasuke back. She shouted, "Earth style, Mud River Jutsu," and began performing hand seals. A river of mud erupted from her mouth, aimed at Sakura and Sasuke, who snatched Sakura and leapt to the trees. With Naruto, Naruto was quickly enraged by the snake's belly rest. He concentrated ki around his body, building up the energy pressure before releasing it in a powerful wave that burned the snake as it stretched out. The Kyuubi exclaimed, "Naruto, return to the others immediately," as soon as he had removed the snake's guts from himself. It was a snake that was called forth. "We have Orochimaru here." As a woman stopped a mud river jutsu, Sasuke was hiding in the trees with Sakura when Naruto swiftly took off, flying toward his friend's ki. When Sasuke put Sakura down, he looked up to see Naruto staring at him. Sasuke and Naruto flew down to halt in front of the woman without saying anything, and Naruto declared, "Now, it's 2-on-1. Do you think you can manage us both?" "I am more powerful than I look," the woman said. "I can't be defeated by you 2 alone." "Are you certain about that, Orochimaru?" asked Naruto. "You mean this woman?" asked Sasuke. "Orochimaru is here? Have you witnessed any attacks involving snakes?" asked Naruto. "The hidden shadow snake jutsu," said Sasuke. "This must be Orochimaru." She, or rather he, removed the false face he was wearing and said, "I guess I don't need this disguise anymore." Orochimaru, who had purple eyeliner and yellow eyes with a slit in them, was the woman. "What do we do, Naruto?" said Sasuke. "I believe he's here for one of us," Naruto remarked. "Why else would he make the effort to enter the village and pose as a grass nin squad? He will simply pursue us if we attempt to flee." "So we stand and fight," said Sasuke. "You know it," Naruto said. "We can't hold back, though." Sasuke pushed his power to its maximum, creating a dense blue aura around him, while Naruto yelled and went Super Saiyan, forcing his power to its maximum and making his aura spiral out of control. "Attack!" Naruto exclaimed. "What did he do? How did his hair and eye color change like that?" Orochimaru asked, staring at Naruto in shock. Both Naruto and Sasuke vanished and then reappeared at Orochimaru's sides, throwing punches, but Orochimaru jumped back and avoided them. The boys spun around without colliding, and they began pursuing Orochimaru. Sasuke attempted a kick in front of him, but Orochimaru blocked it. He continued to attack, but each time he was hit, and he attempted to kick Orochimaru again, but his foot was grabbed and he was flung into the air. That was Naruto's signal to attack, and he delivered a tiny blow to Orochimaru's stomach, which Orochimaru deflected with his left arm but was unable to stop the scream that escaped. What was that? Jiraiya doesn't hit that hard. Naruto delivered another blow to Orochimaru's chest, but Orochimaru substituted a log for himself, shattering it, and Naruto turned to face Orochimaru, reappearing in his face with Sasuke at his side, the two of them working together to defeat Orochimaru, who continued dodging Naruto's blows or blocking Sasuke's. Due to Naruto's speed and Sasuke's ability to predict his attacks with his level 3 Sharingan, Orochimaru was unable to attack and was forced to remain on the defensive. Unfortunately for him, both Naruto and Sasuke noticed that he was using his right arm more than his left. During the battle, Naruto began to attack his weaker left side, hitting Orochimaru in the ribs, which caused him to drop his defense, allowing Sasuke to perform hand seals of Fire Style, Fire Sword Jutsu. After grabbing Orochimaru's right arm and holding it out for Sasuke, Naruto used his other hand to create a blade of ki and cut off Orochimaru's right leg. Sasuke then cut off Orochimaru's right arm in a blur and a flash of red. Naruto replied, "Without your arm, you're useless, Orochimaru." Orochimaru was still coping with his severed limbs, so Naruto put some distance between them so he could launch his attack, Riot Javelin. How is Naruto able to keep up with me? What the hell is this? Orochimaru was hit squarely by the attack, and Naruto landed with Sasuke close by. "There's a problem," Sasuke said. "It would not be that simple to defeat Orochimaru. If not, any team could accomplish it." From behind them, Orochimaru's voice said, "Good observation, Sasuke-kun." Naruto remarked, "How the hell did he dodge that?" As they turned around to see Orochimaru standing there with all of his limbs, no damage, and brand new clothes. Had it been a clone, it would have perished at the first blow of Sasuke's Fire Sword Jutsu. According to Orochimaru, a master shinobi never reveals his secrets. Damn it. I can't let another one of those attacks hit me. That oral rebirth jutsu, 1. Requires a lot of chakra, and if I keep using it, I won't win this battle, Orochimaru thought. We chopped off 2 limbs and blew up the remains, so Naruto wondered, what kills this guy? No one had ever been hit in the head by a riot javelin and survived. Naruto and Sasuke defended themselves against Orochimaru's attacks as he charged at them. Naruto blocked a kick and remarked, "Orochimaru, for a Sannin, you can't throw a punch worth shit." Unfortunately for Orochimaru, Naruto could easily see his attacks as he snarled at him and began to hit more quickly. Orochimaru jumped back and performed an odd hand seal before returning to the fight, too. Unfortunately for Naruto, Orochimaru's jutsu allowed him to stretch his body parts out to extremes, so he moved his body out of the way and punched Naruto in the face. Naruto was countering and attacking when he noticed an opening in Orochimaru's side and sent a punch there. Sasuke and Naruto continued to try to attack, but Orochimaru was able to easily avoid their attack because he was wearing that jutsu. Naruto attempted another punch, but Orochimaru coiled around his arm and went up his entire body. Naruto yelled, directed energy around his entire body, and released an explosive wave that blew Orochimaru to pieces before he could do anything. Despite the fact that his clothes were torn, Orochimaru was put back together when white snakes began to emerge from his severed limbs and connect with one another. 3. Naruto became enraged and screamed, "Why won't you die?" Naruto shouted, "Water style, water bullet jutsu," while performing hand seals. He then fired water bullets at Orochimaru, who simply unhinged his joints and avoided them all. "Haven't you learned yet, Naruto-kun? I'm eternal. I'm too strong for you." "You are not immortal, Orochimaru," Naruto remarked. "A bitch is merely attempting to murder you." Naruto and Sasuke hurried after Orochimaru once more, but Orochimaru's jutsu made it nearly impossible to strike him. Naruto managed to hit him and knock him back, then turned to face Sasuke and exclaimed, "Kamehameha." Naruto followed Sasuke as he nodded and began to charge up an attack. Orochimaru noticed them and wondered what they were doing when he heard them chanting, "Ka." Orochimaru, feeling threatened, pressed one hand to the ground and exclaimed, "Jutsu summoned, Rashomon." A red gate appeared out of nowhere, me. Orochimaru, who was growing frightened but was sure that the one Rashomon gate could absorb the attack, leapt to the top of the gate and saw that blue spheres of energy were forming between their hands. Ha! Orochimaru was still certain that one Rashomon gate could contain them, but he was growing increasingly frightened as the orbs suddenly tripled in size. Me. Summoning Jutsu. Triple Rashomon. Orochimaru slammed both of his hands on the ground after leaping from the Rashomon gate. Two gates rose up, one green and one blue, both with the same design as the red. Behind them, Orochimaru hid. Sasuke and Naruto launched their assaults. Ha! Their strikes blasted from their hands in the direction of the Rashomon gates. The Rashomon gates were designed to be virtually indestructible, and no one has ever broken all three. The red gate was the first and would take the attack directly, followed by the green gate, which lessens the attack's power, and the blue gate, which distributes the pressure. The record was broken that day when Naruto and Sasuke combined their Kamehameha waves to blow through all three Rashomon gates. The Rashomon gates performed part of their function, with the red gate taking the attack head on but failing to survive the blast, the green gate reducing the attack's power but failing to survive the blast, and the last one failing to perform its function at all. The attack hit Orochimaru dead on, nearly burning his entire body, as it would have if it weren't for the Rashomon gates. When the smoke cleared, Orochimaru's body was mangled and broken, his arms were almost completely gone, and his skin was seared off. Sasuke and Naruto hoped that Orochimaru would die or back off, but he did neither. Instead, he opened his mouth with his hands to an amazing width, and then his body fell down like an old snakeskin, revealing a new Orochimaru who was completely covered in slime, had no damage, no hacked limbs, new clothes, and no limbs. Orochimaru grinned and said, "A good attack, boys, but it failed. What the hell was that attack? I have to end this thing now. Summoning the three Rashomon gates and another rebirth. I'm too low on chakra to keep this up. I have to mark Sasuke-kun and get out of here," Orochimaru thought, despite his arrogant appearance. Orochimaru quickly made a hand seal and merged with the ground after Naruto threw another riot javelin at him. 4. The riot javelin missed, and Orochimaru's head emerged from the ground behind them and flew in the direction of Sasuke, who screamed and simply fell to the ground after Orochimaru bit him in the neck. Orochimaru's head sank back into the ground before Naruto could intervene, and he reappeared in a tree. Naruto screamed, "What did you do to Sasuke, you bastard?" The mark where Orochimaru bit appeared to be a shield with a sword in front of it. "I have marked Sasuke with my cursed seal," Orochimaru declared. "I made him a brand new one. It's known as Susanu's cursed seal. He will come to me for even more power if he can make it through the cursed seal." "No, he won't," Naruto said, giving Orochimaru his fiercest glare. "Here, I'll murder you." After throwing another riot javelin at Orochimaru, who had already vanished by the time it struck, Naruto simply yelled aloud, picked up Sasuke, and flew to where he thought Sakura might be. When the fighting broke out, she fled, and when he found her, he discovered that she was with Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji. His words were, "Guys, we have a problem." "Sasuke-kun," shouted Ino. Ino said, "Is he?" but was unable to finish her sentence, and took him from Naruto. "He isn't," said Naruto. "It was Orochimaru who attacked us. He gave Sasuke a neck bite. Then Sasuke passed out. Before I could kill him, he fled. On his neck, I discovered that mark. I'm very sorry, Ino." Ino and Sasuke had been dating since they returned from the Wave Country mission 6 months prior, and despite Sasuke's best efforts to conceal it, Naruto was aware of his deep affection for Ino and that Ino shared this sentiment. "Is it okay if Sakura and I accompany you guys?" asked Naruto. "It's okay if you assist us in retrieving our scroll," Shikamaru stated. "All right, then," Naruto said. "What about this? While Ino and Sakura keep an eye on Sasuke, Choji, Shikamaru, and I go get the scrolls we require." After reaching a consensus, they made the decision to depart and retrieve the scrolls. 10 p.m. on the first day, Naruto, Shikamaru, and Choji made the decision to go out and retrieve the remaining scrolls that their teams required to pass after delivering Sasuke to Ino. Since giving Sasuke to the girls at noon, they have been looking, but they haven't found him. Unfortunately, Team 7's extra Earth scroll from the Mist team was useless because Team 10 already had one. However, they kept it for negotiating purposes. They found gold after nearly half a day of searching. Since it was dark, visibility was poor and Shikamaru's shadow jutsu were at their strongest. A group of people were cooking fish in a large clearing. "I'll put out the fire. Then, Shikamaru, I want you to use your shadow possession jutsu to stop them." "Choji, do you know any jutsu that could take them out?" Naruto said as softly as he could when he saw them there. Choji replied, "I've been working on this new jutsu for a while now. I think it could take 2 of them out." "Let's not risk 3, Naruto said after giving it some thought. Shoji, take out 2 of them. When you take out your 2, I'll take out the last one. Shikamaru responded, Naruto, you do know that any pain these people feel is transferred to me through the jutsu, right? Naruto replied, I guess I can't just shoot them from back here then. Change of plans. Shoji, warn Shikamaru when you're about to take yours out. After you take them out, Shikamaru needs to release his jutsu so that I can take out the last person. Sounds like a plan. Let's do it, Shikamaru said. Naruto separated from the other 2 and assumed separate roles. The only light the group had was extinguished when Naruto used a ki blast to put out the flames. Shikamaru moved swiftly and used Shadow Possession Jutsu to capture all 3. All 3 of the sitting teammates suddenly got to their feet, facing different directions. What the hell? Exclaimed one of them. Something's up, guys. I can't control my body. With Choji at his side, Shikamaru emerged from the shadows and uttered, Of course you can't. Because I do now. Shadow Possession success, get them Choji. Choji shouted, partial multi-size jutsu, and performed hand seals. Choji extended his arms until they were as large as a giant's. Shikamaru released his shadow possession of those 2 as he seized 2 of them and raised them. Choji then attempted to knock them both out by clapping his hands together. They fell out of his grasp, and Choji completed his task by terminating the jutsu. After releasing the final individual, they turned to face Choji and Shikamaru, failing to spot Naruto in the tree line across the clearing. As Naruto attempted to knock out the final individual with a ki blast, a voice called out, Miku, get out of the way. At the last moment, the gorilla now known as Makua leapt to her left to avoid the ki blast. The same voice called out, water style. Water bullet jutsu, before Naruto could locate the source of the voices. A massive droplet of water blasted Shikamaru and Choji from their side before they could move. The 2 genin were knocked into a nearby tree by the water droplet that sucked them up. Both Shikamaru and Choji stood up, appearing somewhat stunned but unharmed. Another male voice shouted, Fire style. Phoenix flower jutsu, as they stood up. Shikamaru and Choji dodged a cluster of fireballs that were headed toward their former location and leapt to the trees. Naruto was about to leap in when someone tackled him from behind. It was the previous girl, Miku. Despite being pushed to the ground, Naruto accepted it for show. Miku placed a kunai at Naruto's neck and stopped him from using his elbows by placing her knees on them. Shikamaru and Choji both leapt out of the tree line, followed by 2 other ninja, after he heard some scuffling in the trees. The hidden waterfall village was the home of the ninja. According to Miku, who appeared to be in charge, give up, or your friend here dies. Shikamaru and Choji instantly froze. As Shikamaru reached for their scroll to negotiate for Naruto's life, Shikamaru turned to face Naruto and saw him perform a somewhat convincing display of fear. Any seasoned ninja would notice that Naruto was not perspiring, that he was not staring at his captors, and that his eyes were not filled with fear. Shikamaru could see right through Naruto's act of fear, so he knew that Naruto must have had a way to stay safe no matter what. With a turn toward them, Shikamaru declared, I don't care. Kill him. Miku was so taken aback that all she could say was, what? Then Shikamaru carried out his scheme. He began to move his hands slowly behind his back, where Choji was. For nonverbal communication, he began using a unique hand sign language developed years ago by his father, Choji's father, and Ino's father. He wrote, fight on my signal. Slit his throat for all I care. Shikamaru said as he signed, I don't give a damn about him. I was only using him to get a scroll. With wide eyes, Naruto exclaimed, Shikamaru, what the hell is your problem? Miku mumbled, but isn't he your fellow leaf ninja? Aren't you guys supposed to look out for each other or something? Shikamaru replied, I don't really care about that dead last. All he ever did was hold everyone back. He's just deadweight. Hell, if you don't slit his throat, I probably will. The other 2 team members became less vigilant after that statement. It was just enough for Shikamaru to shout, Shadow neck bind. Shikamaru reached up and stretched his shadow up the body of one of the other ninjas. Choji performed the partial multi-size jutsu after realizing it was time to strike. Before he could free his friend, he lifted the other man with his arm. Choji smashed his hand on the man and threw him to the ground. Miku attempted to cut Naruto's throat, but she was 10 feet in the air before she could do so. Miku fell toward the ground as Naruto spun around in midair. After flying down after her, Naruto gave her a light, for him, punch to the head, knocking her unconscious. Shikamaru and Choji had just finished eliminating their opponents. After rummaging through their bodies, they discovered a heaven scroll. With a weary sigh, Naruto uttered, one down, one to go. With Orochimaru, first day, 10 p.m. I made a huge mistake with those two boys. It's unbelievable that I was so foolish as to utilize data that was months old. These were the innermost thoughts of Orochimaru, a jackass, sociopath, and madman from Konoha. Orochimaru had to leave right away after marking Sasuke, or else Naruto would kill him. The boy had managed to give him a serious challenge in some way. When Orochimaru escaped, his chakra was nearly depleted. Orochimaru and his former apprentice Enko Midarashi had a minor altercation while he was running. She was given a message by Orochimaru to deliver to the Hokage. The village would be destroyed if the Chunin exams were stopped. Once he had separated from his pupil, he encountered an issue. How should he handle Susanu's cursed seal? One of the first people to be granted the cursed seal was Sasuke. Because they kept dying, he was unable to even give the cursed seal to anyone else. Fortunately, people with bloodlines appeared to survive 10% of the time. However, they passed away after just a few minutes of life. Sasuke would have a great deal of power if he survived the cursed seal. But even Orochimaru was unaware of the extent of it. There was not enough time for him to test it. And that was the issue. He needed Kabuto's team to survive for later, but he had 6 people to test it. The Sound Genin team was left. Orochimaru, however, knew that Sasuke could not compete with the team in their current condition because of everything he had put into that seal. However, they might be able to provide Sasuke with a good test of Susanu's cursed seal if one of them possessed one. It could be even better if they all had one. While they're at it, they could also kill that blonde annoyance. The only issue is that they have a high probability of dying. Well, at least my ass isn't at stake. In addition, I do have Kabuto's teammates on hand in case they don't work out. Orochimaru traveled through the forest of death to meet the Sound Genin bearing that thought in mind. What is thy bidding, Orochimaru? Sama. They all knelt down when he arrived. Orochimaru replied, there is someone in this exam I want you to kill. His name is Sasuke Uchiha. He has been a thorn in my side for a while now and I want him dead. If you can kill his teammates, it would be even better. Zaku, one of them, declared, Orochimaru. Sama, it will be done. Orochimaru replied, yes, but in your state now, you 3 are far too weak to even be able to stand a chance against him. That's why I want to give you a gift. A gift I give to only my most loyal servants. A cursed seal. This shall increase your power higher than it's ever gone before. Sasuke Uchiha won't stand a chance. Are you 3 ready to receive a gift I only give my most loyal and strongest of servants? Without any problems, the 3 nodded. Fools, Orochimaru thought to himself. Orochimaru produced a vial that contained the serum required to administer the cursed seal. He extended his neck and bit all 3 of them after dipping his canine teeth into it. As they were given their seals, the 3 screamed in agony. When you 3 wake up, you are to go after Sasuke Uchiha, Orochimaru said before they passed out. Then, with more work to do, Orochimaru took off. Sasuke's condition had stabilized with the girls. His pulse returned to normal, and he began breathing regularly. He appeared to be just sleeping at the moment. The fact that Sasuke's condition had stabilized pleased the girls. Ino had to pay close attention to Sasuke. Sakura was almost completely enamored with Sasuke. Sakura's insane way of thinking somehow told her that Sasuke would love her if she became pregnant by him. When Ino returned from her first bathroom visit, she discovered Sakura's butt was nude and ready to pull down Sasuke's trousers. She would have immediately killed Sakura for attempting to steal her man, but she made a vow to Naruto that she wouldn't. Sakura didn't want Sasuke to fail the Chunin exams because his teammate had chosen to whore herself out, and they still needed her to pass them. Sakura had tried every possible tactic to persuade Ino to leave so she could become pregnant. The issue was that Ino was always 2 steps ahead of her and knew every trick she tried. The first time she attempted to knock Ino out, Ino turned to face her after sensing her approach. Sakura had to invent a ridiculous justification, claiming that she believed she had spotted an enemy. Sakura was aware that Ino had been observing her ever since she didn't buy it. Sakura didn't know what to do now. She had no choice but to wait for Sasuke to awaken and make another attempt at seduction. However, they were unaware that the cursed seal was infecting Sasuke with its evil chakra and worming its way throughout his entire system. His whole body had already been overtaken by it. The seal was now strengthening Sasuke by repairing any harm he had sustained. A portion of Sasuke's fat was being burned. Sasuke was becoming healthier as a result. Its host couldn't be weak, could it? Its preliminary work would soon be finished. Once Sasuke's body was fully infected, it would spread to his mind. Giving Sasuke more power than he had previously had was its second task. After that, Sasuke would become dependent on the power. Orochimaru would approach Sasuke and offer him even more power after he had him hooked. The plan was infallible. All the seal had to do now was worm its way into Sasuke's head. Furthermore, Sasuke's mental scars from the Uchiha massacre only made the task appear simpler. No one bothered to look up at the sky while all of this was happening in the Forest of Death. They would have seen 3 moving objects approaching the ground if they had. The 3 spherical objects appeared to have a diameter of roughly 10 feet, except for what appeared to be a door and a window on it. They appeared to be entirely solid. With the exception of a triangular symbol on the door, they were all white. In the form of a smaller triangle, 1/3 of the triangle's interior was blue. It was yellow the rest of it. This served as the emblem for the World Trade Organization's elite combat force, the Ginyu Force. 2 feet above the ground, the 3 objects came to a halt just before they hit the ground. 3 creatures that shared the same appearance emerged as the doors opened. Each of them stood around 8 feet tall. Each of them had a green screen in front of their left eye and a white device mounted on their ear. The skin on their arms, legs, and torso appeared to be muscle rather than skin. The creatures were so large that their forearm and shin armor appeared to be being strained to its limit. Though not as much as the armor on their shins and forearms, their torso armor also appeared stretched. Massive, colored, hemispherical gems adorned the shoulder blades, which extended approximately 1.5 feet from the neck. A hemispherical gem, similar to those on the shoulders, was located in the middle of the torso armor. The head armor was the most obvious feature. They had 3 feet of head armor. The same gem that covered his shoulders and torso was used to make the top half. 2 horns were located close to the point where the head armor joined the head, and 2 larger horns were located close to the top of the head armor. They had 3 toes on each foot. They had 5 fingers on each hand. Oddly, they had light purple skin on their hands, feet, neck, and head. They also had a massive spearhead at the end of their 5-foot tail. The tail's skin appeared identical to that of the arms and legs. These 3 were identical except for the color of their gems. There was a creature with yellow gems. The final one had red gems, and the other had orange ones. Putting his hand to the earpiece, the yellow one, who appeared to be the leader, declared, "Lord Kurumi, we have landed." The device's voice said, "Wavo, that's great. What's your role?" A stellar parsec is a fictitious measurement that is equivalent to 100 miles. Wavo stated, "Me, Leche, and Hogo are 12 stellar parsecs from the target." "Why are you so off target?" asked Kurumi, who was beginning to sound irritated. "I am Lord Kurumi, the navigator," said Leche, the orange one. "I'm to blame. I must have entered the incorrect coordinates." "I don't care," Kurumi said. "Simply complete the task." "All right, then, Lord Kurumi," Wavo said. "Wavo is gone." Wavo said, "Leche, I want you to determine which way we have to go after shutting off the ear device." "We have to go north, northwest," Leche said. "We will encounter our targets if we do." "We have to be careful," Hogo said. "These individuals were searching for maybe Saiyans," Kurumi said. "Who cares?" said Leche. "Those monkeys are extinct and dead. This mission could likely be completed by one of us alone." "Oh yeah?" said Hogo. I figured that over a century of rumors would make it so that Goku killed all of them by himself." A Lord Kurumiya's ancestor Frieza had the same thought, but it only took one Saiyan to kill him, all of his bodyguards, and the Ginyu force of that time. "Stop fighting, you two," Wavo said. "Hogo is right, Leche. According to Teost's last transmission, 3 powerful individuals were responsible for his death. It is clear that Teost was not killed by humans. Even though Teost was a weak worm, he was still more powerful than a human. The only explanation is that some Saiyan descended people are still alive on this planet. We have to be alert. We could become like Teost if we aren't. Let's go now and stop fighting." The 3 aliens then took off high into the sky and began flying in the direction of their targets, the Teost killers. Day 2. 11 a.m. Sasuke was still in the Forest of Death on the second day, and Ino had been worried about her own safety as well as Sasuke's. What if Orochimaru returned for a second attack? Then she and Sakura would be of no use. Fortunately for her, Neji, Tenten, and Lee's team had made it through. Ino began shouting, "Lee.San, Lee.San." Lee motioned for his team to halt when he heard Ino call his name, asking, "What's up, Ino?" "I need your help," Ino said. "Why?" Tenten asked. "In any case, where are the guys from your team?" Tenten didn't focus much on the rookies, but she was aware that teams typically consisted of 2 men and 1 woman, so it was curious that Ino was here by herself. "They're out with Naruto in search of a scroll," Ino stated. They wanted Sakura and I to remain behind and keep an eye on Sasuke. With wide eyes, Lee exclaimed, "Whatever became of Sasuke?" According to Naruto and Sakura, Orochimaru attacked them, Ino stated, on Sasuke-kun's neck. He applied this strange seal. "I'm afraid, but Naruto wanted Sakura and I to stay with Sasuke-kun and support him." "You don't know whether Orochimaru will return or not," Neji said. "I don't," Ino said. "I need your assistance because of this. Even with my training, I can't compete with Sasuke-kun, much less one of the legendary Sannin. I need your assistance, Lee-san, please. The likelihood of us defeating Orochimaru is likely to be higher if 5 of us are defending Sasuke-kun. We already have our 2 scrolls," Lee said to his team after closing his eyes and considering his options. "We can postpone our arrival at the tower for a short time." "Lee, consider this," Neji said. "The enemy is represented by the 2 scrolls we possess. How do you know that the others aren't out there waiting to surprise us and that she isn't lying?" "Because Naruto and Sasuke are my friends," Lee said, squinting his eyes. "They wouldn't lie like that, I'm sure. Furthermore, nowhere do I detect their key signatures." Tenten responded, "But you said that some people can suppress their key." "They can suppress it, but they can't hide it entirely," Lee stated. "I'm trying to find the signatures of Naruto, Choji, and Shikamaru. On the opposite side of the Forest of Death are they. I can also feel Sakura beside Sasuke in that tree. Her account is credible." Neji stated, "I still believe this is a bad idea, but I believe we can spare a little time if you truly want to. Only until the start of the 4th day, though. We must be en route to the tower by that time, or we will never arrive." Team Guy made the decision to protect them and assist them. Ino was pleased but still afraid, and she would not let her fear go until they had left this whole forest ordeal behind. All she could hope for was that the boys would return soon. As night fell, the boys were fortunate to discover an Iwagakure team sitting around and decided to take them out. Fortunately, the team had a heaven scroll. Naruto motioned the boys to stop as they were heading home, feeling 3 enormous power levels approaching their position, sensing that they were only 30 miles away and 3 miles up. Naruto turned to Shikamaru and Choji and said, "Guys, we need to get back to the girls now." Sensing that Naruto's voice was tense, Shikamaru asked, "Why? What took place?" Feeling that Lee's entire team was close to Sakura and Ino, Naruto said, "If I tried to tell you, it would only confuse you." "Guys, some very bad people are coming for us right now," Naruto said. "We're pretty much dead if they discover us. We must reach the girls. They have Lee's team with them. They will assist us." According to Shikamaru, "Let's go then. I haven't felt a signature like that since my fight with that Tiost guy. Could these be friends of his? They might be looking for his killer. If they do come for us, I just hope to Kami that Lee and I are strong enough to fight them off," Naruto thought as he created 2 shadow clones, each of which grabbed a boy and fled at full speed. After arriving at the girls' location 2 minutes later, Naruto and his clones dropped Shikamaru and Choji, who managed to land safely on their own. Naruto landed next to Lee, who was just as tense as Naruto, and Lee remarked, "You're feeling that, right?" "Yes," said Naruto. "Even worse, there are 2 of us and 3 of them. The guy's ability to handle that final one is uncertain. They might have a chance if one of them was as weak as the last guy," Lee said. "However, I have the feeling that just these men are roughly twice as strong as the previous one. I'm not sure." "Where is your father, Lee?" said Naruto. According to Lee, he's currently on an assassination mission in the land of Earth. Here, we are by ourselves. "Well, they're unaware that we're currently suppressing our power levels," Naruto remarked. "With our changes, there is still a sense of surprise." Lee muttered, "Speak for yourself." Lee had yet to unlock the Super Saiyan transformation, and while he had managed to get false Super Saiyan up to 30x, it appeared that his body was not yet capable of handling 50x. Vegeta explained that this was probably due to the disease that Lee had suffered from for 13 years, from which his body had not fully recovered, and that it might take up to 8 more months for him to fully recover. Ignoring that, Naruto said, "With our power, the element of surprise is still present. We will have to eliminate them first if they have scouters. They can find us anywhere with those scouters." "I know," Lee said. "Are you prepared to fight, then?" The statement from Naruto was, "Hasn't stopped me before." Lee simply grinned and turned to face the others, who were double checking their supplies and preparing for battle, likely having overheard Lee and Naruto's conversation based on their behavior. Hogo turned to Wavo and said, "Our report said that the ones who killed Tiost had power levels over 800,000. A few minutes later, 3 white dots began to descend from the sky and landed directly in front of the group, leaving the 3 aliens looking bewildered. That kid with the purple hair is the strongest person here, and he's 300,000. They couldn't have killed Teost. According to the story of Frieza's demise, people were able to trick the scouter, Lachey stated. It's possible that they can also deceive the scouts. The humans who were capable of doing that were on Earth, Wavo stated. Zigpen is where we are. They are incapable of suppressing their energy in that manner. After noticing their distraction, Naruto turned to Lee, who nodded, and they hurried the three, temporarily boosting their power as high as it could go. Before the three could react, Naruto destroyed Wavo's scouter by punching him in the ear, and Lee knocked Hogo down to Lee's height by punching him in the stomach and then kicking him in the ear. Before they could remove Lachey's, he leapt backwards. As a means of restoring ties between the main and branch families of the Hyuga clan, Heishi Hyuga had granted some of the branch members access to the main family's personal techniques, including Neji. Unfortunately for Lachey, Neji had been honing his Juyuken since he witnessed Naruto, Lee, and Sasuke fighting a few months prior. While perusing the scrolls, Neji came across one technique that he immediately liked, and after months of practice, he eventually perfected it. 8 trigrams. Air palm. Lee swiftly thanked Neji and positioned himself in front of the 3 aliens after Neji thrust his palm at Lachey's ear, causing a wave of chakra to emerge from his hand and strike Lachey directly in the ear, destroying the scouter. Seizing the opportunity, Neji jumped in next to the 2 Saiyans and remarked, "You two owe me an explanation later." "We'll give you one," Naruto said. "Let's kick some ass for the time being." Ready to beat the living daylights out of their adversaries, the 6 warriors charged at one another. Wavo made the decision to rush Naruto first. After ducking beneath Wavo's blow, Naruto struck him in the stomach. After giving Wavo a chin uppercut, he raised a foot and kicked him in the chest. Above Wavo, Naruto vanished and then reappeared. Then he smashed a double-handed axe to the ground, striking Wavo in the head. Hogo trailed behind the others as Lee charged him. Lee shouted, "Leaf Whirlwind," and leapt into the air at the last second. Hogo easily blocked the attack that could easily break bone. Hogo brought his knee up into Lee's stomach after punching him in the chest. Then Hogo seized Lee's head and hurled him into the air. Hogo screamed, "Death Wave," as Lee regained his composure and began to hover in midair. Hogo's hand shot a red beam of energy in his direction. Lee sprinted away from the explosion. After that, Lee ran over to Hogo and gave him a mouth punch. Although Lee parried Hogo's blow, he was unprepared for Hogo's tail to turn and strike him in the chest. Neji began avoiding Lachey's blows right away. Lachey began launching tiny energy bullets and thrusting his fingers at Neji. Neji began avoiding them after realizing what they typically did. Neji eventually charged forward and leapt into the air, slamming a gentle fist slam into Lachey's arm. "What the fuck was that?" asked Lachey, glancing at him. Neji's eyes grew wide before Lachey's tail struck him. Neji managed to regain his equilibrium and use his Byakugan while being knocked back. "How could I forget?" Neji then silently cursed himself. "They're not using chakra energy. It won't help if I seal up their tenketsu as much as I want. They're still able to use the base 2 energies of chakra. Their inner organs could likely still be affected by my gentle fist, but it would require a lot more chakra." Neji squinted and started back toward Lachey. Lachey began to sidestep Neji's blows, but she began to recoil in agony when Neji struck her in the stomach. Knowing that these aliens could kill him in a heartbeat if given the chance, Neji made the decision to go in for the kill right away. Holding his palm back, Neji hurried in, preparing to slam it into Lachey's chest. He was only 6 inches away from colliding with Lachey when his oxygen supply abruptly stopped. A tremendous force choked him. He glanced at Lachey, who had his neck encircled by her tail. When Lachey said, "That hurt, you bitch." Lifting his hand, Lachey placed it on Neji's chest. According to him, 1 down, 2 to go. Before he could release the blast, he heard someone shout, "Human boulder jutsu." His hand began to glow yellow. He could only widen his eyes in terror as Choji flattened him as he turned to his left, where the voice had come from. His hold on Neji instantly relaxed. Neji leapt back after removing his tail. Choji leapt to where the other ninja were after turning off his multi-size jutsu. Tenten replied, "Sorry Neji, but it looks like this is gonna be a team effort." Despite his heavy breathing, Neji stated, "I have no problem with that." Wavo charged Naruto after he had recovered from his attack. Wavo was duped by Naruto's creation of an afterimage. Where Wavo had been, Naruto reappeared. Naruto's hand took on a faint blue glow as he charged energy into it. "Riot Javelin!" he yelled as he threw the ball at Wavo when it was large enough. When the attack struck Wavo, he spun around and blocked, Naruto charged in and attempted a punch before Wavo had a chance to recover from the attack. Wavo vanished during the assault and then resurfaced behind Naruto. Then Wavo kicked Naruto away from the others and into the air. As Lee recovered from his tail slam, Hogo pursued him. Lee was kneed in the stomach after deflecting Hogo's blow. Hogo attempted to force Lee to the ground, but Lee vanished before he could do so. "Leaf Rising Wind" was shouted by Lee, who then kicked Hogo in the chin. Flying up to Hogo, Lee caught him by the waist. Lee found it easy because Hogo was more than 7 feet tall. Lee began to turn around, his ability to fly only adding to the force. As he rose higher and higher into the sky, Lee began to turn and turn. Lee turned to the ground and began flying as fast as he could once he was high enough. He shouted, "Primary Lotus," as he hit the ground, causing a huge cloud of dirt to rise. Flying over the cloud, Lee sensed Hogo's vitality. Ki blast after ki blast began to pour down from Lee's mouth. They struck at first, but then they began to be deflected. Is he awake already? How powerful is this guy? Hogo emerged from the smoke cloud with minor burn marks on him, interrupting Lee's thoughts. After striking Lee in the jaw, he used his tail to snatch Lee by the neck. Hogo flew to a tree and repeatedly slammed Lee's head against it. Wavo made the decision to carry out the attack after launching Naruto into the air. He would show up and kick Naruto away from wherever he kicked him. 3 times he did that. Naruto managed to phase out and reappear behind Wavo on the 4th attempt. Wavo was then kicked toward the ground by Naruto. Above Wavo, Naruto vanished and then reappeared. He made a tiny crater when he flew down and tackled Wavo to the ground. He heard something being slammed into something else as he stood up. He glanced around and saw that Hogo was strangling Lee and smashing his head against a tree. With a few swift hand seals, Naruto exclaimed, "Lightning style. False darkness jutsu." A mass of lightning that resembled a beast emerged from Naruto's body. The creature lunged ahead and struck Hogo in the back. When Hogo screamed, Lee fell to the ground. Lee gave Naruto a quick thank you before performing some hand seals of his own. He performed his father's favorite jutsu, fire style, Apollo's Fury, before ending on Dragon. A massive pyroclastic eruption erupted beneath Hogo, engulfing him. Hogo was struck by the attack because he was unable to flee in time. Wavo was going to attack Naruto from behind, but Naruto flinched just in time. He did more hand seals and reappeared behind Wavo. Water style, Great Waterfall Jutsu. When Naruto yelled the jutsu's name, a tremendous volume of water sprayed at Wavo, washing him farther into the forest. He went snooping around for more jutsu a short time after the Bird Country mission. His primary water technique up until that point had been the water bullet jutsu. However, Naruto chose to retire that jutsu in favor of something a bit more oomph. Sasuke didn't know of any, so he went to him to ask for one. Sasuke recalled that Kakashi employed the Great Waterfall Jutsu in his fight with Zabuza in Wave Country. Naruto learned the jutsu and used it as his primary water jutsu after stealing the scroll from the Konoha Shinobi library. Naruto performed additional hand seals and yelled, "Lightning style, false darkness jutsu," upon noticing Wavo standing there. With the intention of striking Wavo, the beast charged forward. Wavo ducked out of the way, waiting until the very last second. The tree's impact spot was fried when the attack struck it. Shikamaru, Tenten, Ino, Neji, and Choji were the members of Leche's opposition. Shikamaru replied, "Troublesome Naruto. Always dragging us into something. Hold him off for a while guys, let me think of a strategy." Guys team's second.in, command, Neji, commanded, "Guys, follow me." Neji, Tenten, Choji, and Ino hurried forward. Neji attacked first, using his gentle fist. However, Neji had a disadvantage. His training involved attacking the arms to weaken the target's defenses, then striking the legs before aiming for the chest to kill. Since these aliens lacked chakra, his usual strategy was ineffective. Although his chakra reserves were larger than normal, they were still insufficient for a protracted conflict with the aliens. If he wanted his attacks to do any harm, he had to put a lot more force into them. Additionally, their anatomy might be different because they didn't appear to be from Earth. With the brain located in the head, the human body's major organs were all housed in the torso. He had no idea, however, that these aliens might have their brains in their shoulders and their hearts in their feet. One positive aspect was that the alien's chest contained a valuable item. It might indicate that their species' anatomy and human anatomy were similar. Neji attempted to use his Byakugan to peer through, but it was unable to see through his armor very well. Neji began attacking Leche after deciding to play with the hand that was dealt to him. Leche missed Tenten's attack but ducked Neji's blow. Tenten attempted to stab Lechei in the forearm with a kunai as he ran to his side. Sadly, upon contact, the kunai broke. Tenten jumped over Lechei with ease and landed behind him, but Lechei smirked and attempted to slap her with his arm. Tenten withdrew a scroll and drew blood from her finger. She drew a sword from her weapons scroll and wiped her blood on the scroll. She dashed forward to get back into the fray. Ino had a great chance to practice a new jutsu she had learned while Neji was attacking Lechei. Lightning style, lightning sword jutsu. Ino's 2 fingers were extended. They formed a thin, yellow beam. With lightning sparks flying from it, the beam resembled a sword. Lechei's back was cut by Ino as he rushed forward. Ino stabbed him in the back when he screamed, then withdrew the sword and stabbed him once more. She persisted in stabbing him until the jutsu had finished. Lechei was kneeling and motionless when the jutsu ceased. Ino was about to approach to check if he was truly dead when Lechei's tail struck her across the stomach. Lechei raised his right hand behind his body and stood. Lechei shouted, "Death wave," before Neji could alert everyone. Neji leapt before everyone and began to spin. "Hakesho Kaden," he shouted. Neji spun, releasing chakra from each tenketsu in his body to form a massive chakra dome. Neji's Kaden and Lechei's yellow death wave collided, cancelling both of them. Neji had to dodge as Lechei threw a ki blast at him after he stopped his Kaden. Tenten attacked Lechei before Neji could do much more. His arm was cut by her, and purple blood poured from it. As Shikamaru watched, he thought, the white armor wasn't over the place where she cut him. Those must undoubtedly be areas of weakness. Shoji shouted, "Partial multi-size jutsu," and his arm grew more than 10 times larger than it had been before. Then he used it to punch Lechei, knocking her back. That's it, Shikamaru thought, and as soon as Lechei stood back up, he used his shadow possession jutsu on her. "Shoji," Shikamaru said, "hold him down." "Multi-size jutsu," Shoji exclaimed, and then he suddenly grew. Shoji grew taller than Lechei, reaching a height of 10 feet and gaining weight. Shoji seized Lechei and clung to him tightly. Lechei persisted in attempting to escape the grip, but Shoji resisted. According to Shikamaru, Neji, his elbow, as hard as you can. Neji hurried forward, focusing a large amount of chakra into his hand. He slammed his hand into Lechei's elbow as soon as he got there. Neji grinned as he heard something snap. His joy was short-lived, though, as Lechei simply yelled and threw off him and Shoji with a massive, explosive wave of energy. Lechei was giving the shinobi a dagger. Like glare. "Now you've pissed me off," he exclaimed. Hogo was still alive after the Apollo's Fury Jutsu's fire geyser wore off. He was breathing heavily while kneeling on one knee. His entire body was covered in scorch marks, and there was a tiny crack in the gem on his stomach. Hogo gave Lee a narrowed look before vanishing from view. Lee searched, but was unable to locate Hogo. He was suddenly struck in the right side and flung through the woods. He was knocked upwards before he could stop himself. He heard a cry of "Death wave," and was blasted by a red beam of energy that struck him from behind. He felt something tighten his breathing as he fell toward the ground. Hogo's tail was around Lee's throat when he opened his eyes. Then Hogo punched Lee in the stomach several times. Lee's pain increased with every punch. After a while, he began to cough up blood. He was aware that he would perish if he did nothing. He had one idea, but it was dangerous. The recording of old fights showed it to him. He could put an end to this if he could shoot a ki blast from his throat. Rewind Lee was viewing some old tapes of battles between the universe's top fighters and ki users. At one point, he witnessed a fight in which a man concentrated energy in his mouth and blasted it out. Lee was intrigued by the move. He would have more than 2 locations to release his ki energy if he could figure out how to do that. Lee went to the GR and decided to give it a try. Well, Sasuke tried it against that Ryu guy a couple months ago, Lee thought as he began to consider it. It can't be that difficult. All right, thought Lee, just like they did in the video. The energy was concentrated at the base of his throat. He yelled aloud after attempting to shove it through his neck. Vegeta was startled by Lee's shout. Lee was lying on the ground, clutching the front of his throat when Vegeta hurried to the GR. "Lee, what happened?" he asked. Lee was unable to speak. He made an effort but was unable to form the words. Rather, he gestured to the screen he was viewing, where a video of past fights was displayed. Vegeta began searching the videos for hints. Eventually, he located the spot where the fighter's throat exploded. Vegeta went to get a Senzu bean after realizing what his son had attempted. He rushed towards Lee and pushed it down his throat. Lee let out a sigh of relief when it reached his stomach, sensing the healing power of the Senzu bean. His words were, "Thanks, Dad." No problem, son. Vegeta then punched Lee in the face, sending him flying in the direction of a wall. Lee, what the hell were you doing? Vegeta asked after Lee had recovered. Lee stated, I was trying to send a blast out of my throat. Vegeta responded, didn't I tell you not to try one of those moves unless I was supervising? Lee replied, yeah, but Sasuke did that move a couple months ago, so I didn't think it was that hard. Vegeta stated, Sasuke has been doing fire jutsu for years. He knows how to properly manipulate the ki so that it doesn't permanently scar his throat. You, however, don't have a single move that is like this. Lee replied, but Dad, that attack could really help me. If it's that important to you, then I'll teach it to you, Vegeta sighed. Flashback end. Even after practicing for some time, Lee was still unable to grasp it. He could lose his life if he made a mistake. But he would die if he didn't. As Vegeta instructed, Lee focused the energy in his stomach. He directed the energy into his mouth and up his throat. Lee let the energy out and opened his mouth wide. It flew from his lips and struck Hogo in the face. Hogo's grip on Lee's throat relaxed due to the blast's pain, releasing the Demi Saiyan. Then Lee screamed, Leaf Hurricane, and struck Hogo in the face. Lee vanished and then reappeared in Hogo's path after the attack sent him flying back and directly into his path. He prepared Hogo for another attack by kicking him into the air. Hogo was kicked toward the ground by Lee, who reappeared above him. He began focusing ki into his fist after beginning to fly toward Hogo. He yelled, Kona Huraken, as he swung at Hogo and struck him in the chest when it had gotten strong enough. As soon as it touched Hogo, the attack exploded. Hogo was thrown toward the ground by the ensuing blast and struck in a power explosion. After landing near the crater Hogo had created, Lee waited for him to emerge. Lee was able to leap back, evade the blow, and get a clear view of his opponent when Hogo delivered a punch. Hogo's body's central jewel was broken to pieces. There was little improvement in the appearance of the other jewels on his body. Hogo was also bleeding from his lip. Hogo appeared to be just a second away from collapsing. Naruto's attempt to blast Wavo failed, and he had to hop back quickly. A second later, Wavo lunged forward, attempting to remove Naruto's head. After a few hits, Naruto lost the rhythm of Wavo's attacks and began to feel the blows, even though he had dodged some of them. After avoiding Wavo's blows by leaping back, Naruto leapt forward and kicked Wavo in the stomach. Then he launched Wavo into the air with an uppercut to the face. He was kicked to the ground when Naruto reappeared in his path. Naruto began directing energy into Wavo's hands as he was falling, chanting, Ka. Me. Ha. Me. Naruto shouted, Ha, and slammed Wavo in the back when the attack reached its peak power. The Kamehameha wave's explosion drowned out Wavo's scream. Wavo was too exhausted to move and was on one knee when the smoke cleared. In order to assist his friends, Naruto chose to take advantage of Wavo's predicament. Like a maniac, Leche charged the ninja. Tenten hurried ahead, with Neji and Choji trailing behind. In a split second, Tenten leapt to the side and cut Leche's thigh as he ran forward. Someone grabbed Leche's arm from behind him as he attempted to punch her. He turned to see Choji's arms spread wide. Choji punched Leche in the face with his free arm. Neji charged forward and crammed a lot of chakra into Leche's palm as he was still healing from Choji's blow. Then, using the mother of all Jiyuken strikes, he struck Leche in the knee. A normal person's intestines would be liquefied by the blow, but Leche's knee was broken, and he fell. Holding Leche's arms straight, Choji took her hand. Choji then began using his enlarged arms to punch Leche in the face as forcefully as he could. Leche's mouth began to leak more and more blood with each blow. With haste, Ino began performing hand seals. Get out of the way, guys. Fire style, Grand Fireball Jutsu. From her mouth, Ino exhaled a massive ball of flame. Leche was completely engulfed by the fireball as Neji, Choji, and Tenten leapt away. Leche was still kneeling there, unharmed, when Ino cut chakra to the fireball. Ino used another lightning sword jutsu while squinting her eyes. With haste, she began slicing Leche wherever she could. To evade their assaults, Leche lifted into the air. He heard someone shout, "Double Riot Javelin," as he was lifting into the air. Naruto had launched 2 Riot Javelin attacks, and they were traveling too quickly to avoid, according to the source of the voice. Leche had no choice but to accept the assaults. Leche collapsed in a cloud of smoke. After fading out, Naruto reappeared next to Wavo and kicked him in the direction of Leche. Lee then brought Hogo to join him a moment later. The 3 aliens had no escape route as the other ninjas circled around and encircled them. Looks like you 3 just lost, Naruto remarked, glancing at the three aliens. As she turned to face Naruto, Lachey exclaimed, "Ha ha ha. Look at this human, thinking he's defeated us. That's a riot." "What are you talking about?" asked Neji. "It's true that you kids are strong, but you haven't even realized our full power," Hogo said. Lee asked with narrowed eyes, "Full power? What are you saying?" Wavo stated, "What he means is that we're holding our power back." "Excuse me if I don't want to believe you," Naruto said. "Compared to our current strength, the last of you to visit here was a weakling." "So you actually killed Tiost?" Hogo asked. "And if I did?" asked Naruto. "Then you're the one we were sent here to kill," Wavo said, smirking as he and Hogo and Lachey exchanged glances. "We can also get rid of our Jan Senkos thanks to it." Neji squinted further and uttered, "What are Jan Senkos exactly?" According to Wavo, each member of the Ginyu Force is given a unique seal known as the Jan Senko. It restricts us to only utilizing a small portion of our potential. We couldn't release ours until we found Tioist's killer, according to Lord Kurumi. The real fight can start now that we have located you. The three aliens were suddenly surrounded by a massive purple aura that was so strong that it was blowing everything around them away that Naruto had to focus chakra to his feet in order to stay on the ground in order to avoid being blown off. As he was focusing on the three aliens, he felt their powers soar, surpassing his own. As the aura subsided, the three aliens stood up, each with the Ginyu Force symbol above the right side of their chest, fully healed, and Naruto narrowed his eyes before assuming a fighting stance, followed instantly by Lee. "Be careful. These guys are much more powerful than they were before," Naruto warned. "Take caution." But before Lee could react, someone slapped him across the face and sent him reeling back, forcing Naruto to halt his speech as a fist struck his mouth. After recovering, the boys shot after Wavo and Hogo, but before they could reach them, Wavo and Hogo appeared above them and kicked them to the ground. The boys got back up and dodged as Wavo and Hogo attempted to hit them again, while Lee kicked Hogo in the chest and Naruto levitated off the ground and went for a punch, nailing Wavo in the jaw. Both aliens went sailing into a tree as the boys continued to attack them, with Lee hitting Hogo with a ki-enhanced leaf whirlwind and Naruto finally landing a ki-charged kick to Wavo. After landing and catching his breath, Naruto remarked, "That was too easy." "They're toying with us," Lee growled. "Well, we have to stop playing with them," Naruto said. "Look." Lee said, "This just isn't for our sakes," after noticing that the others were fighting Lachey and were barely surviving after following Naruto's finger. "They're clearly unable to contain the yellow man. We give him more opportunities to murder our friends the longer we put this off. As Naruto put it, we can't hold back anymore." When both boys saw their enemies rise again and rush them, Naruto grunted a little and became a Super Saiyan in a flash of yellow. Lee concentrated his power and, a second later, he was a Super Saiyan except for the color of his eyes and hair. Lee removed his jacket so it wouldn't limit him. Hogo was thinking, "My god. The legends are true. They all can become Super Saiyans. They're as strong as the Saiyan who killed Frieza." But Wavo and Hogo were stopped in their tracks by their transformations. Hogo replied, "Wavo, I think it's best that we retreat right now." "Are you a moron, Hogo?" Wavo asked. "Or simply, are you a coward? To kill Tioist's killers. We traveled this far. I'm not going to stop now." However, Wavo, do you recall the Super Saiyan legend? Hogo asked. "They supposedly possess the strength to murder Frieza." "So the fuck what?" Wavo asked. "It's merely an old fairy tale. Furthermore, this Super Saiyan thing is most likely just a showy, ineffective transformation. Now fight and quit whining." "I can't believe how strong the Super Saiyan transformation is. Normally, I'd be whining like a little bitch from these hits, but now I'm taking them like they're nothing. Every time I transform I feel like a completely different fighter." Naruto thought as he stood there and did nothing as Wavo charged him and opened with a punch, which he took to the face without even flinching. Wavo narrowed his eyes and began tossing punch after punch and kick after kick. After catching Wavo's punch and kicking him in the chest, which sent him flying, Naruto vanished and then reappeared behind Wavo. When Wavo got to his feet, Naruto punched him in the face, then grabbed his arm and threw him back towards the main group. After that, he appeared beneath Wavo and kicked him into the air. Finally, he charged up a riot javelin and threw it at Wavo, temporarily knocking him out. When Wavo took the Super Saiyan, Hogo saw it as a gift from fate, and he let out a little sigh of relief because he had heard all the stories about the Super Saiyan and knew that if he ever faced one, he was doomed. The Super Saiyan boy was physically stronger than his opponent, but a person who was 10 times more skilled than a Super Saiyan is a worse opponent, and that was precisely what Hogo was up against. Unfortunately for him, fate's gifts were typically a pile of garbage wrapped in gold. You should not be surprised, then, that Hogo was hit in the jaw by a leaf whirlwind when he rushed in, and that he heard a shout of, "Buster Cannon," as he was hurled back. Lee charged through the cloud of smoke and yelled, "Dynamic entry," before Hogo could recover from the kick and was blasted by Lee's blue blast. Lee shouted, "Dynamic action," as he charged forward and kicked Hogo in the cheek. Hogo was being dominated easily, so Lee began to use a powerful combination of punches and kicks to wear him down. Lee was throwing his attacks so quickly that Hogo was unable to block them, and when they landed, the pain was too great for him to do anything to stop the next one. When Lee decided to stop, he punched Hogo in the chest before rushing above him. Lee blasted the attack, shouting, "Gaelic gun, fire!" as he swiftly charged up his attack, enveloping himself and his surroundings in a royal purple light. As soon as the attack hit Hogo, he was blasted to the forest floor, and Lee decided to tackle Leche after charging up a ki blast and sending it down there for good measure. Lee yelled, "Tenten," as he turned to face the battle and saw that Leche had Tenten in his grasp and was ready to slam her to the ground. At that moment, Lee vanished from his position. Leche reached down to smash Tenten's skull into the forest floor, but a hand stopped him, and he turned to look into Lee's deathly serious eyes. Lee used his free hand to spin a ki sword and cut off Tenten's arm. Lee went over to Tenten, pulled the bloody hand off her neck, threw it at Leche, and when it struck, kicked Leche in the face. Leche fell to his knees, screaming. Lee returned to check on Tenten, who looked at Lee and noticed a change since meeting Naruto. She had never considered Lee to be the dateable type prior to meeting Naruto. He seemed to change completely after meeting Naruto, though, who was strong, self-assured, and compassionate. He was also chivalrous, but he knew when to back off and let her get her hands dirty. She had feelings for him since their mission in Bird Country, and they only got stronger the more time they spent together. "Tenten-chan, are you okay?" Lee asked. "Yeah, I'm fine," Tenten said, blushing slightly. "Lee-kun, thank you for saving me. Before you came to my aid, I believed I was doomed." Lee replied, "I'll always be here to help you, Tenten-chan." Neji watched them and grinned to himself, seeing the beginnings of a relationship between those two for a while now, and when he saw them, he told Guy Sensei about it and came up with a plan with him. From that point on, those two were always paired up. During training and sparring, it was always Lee and Tenten, and at the end of the day, Neji usually slipped out to leave those two alone. Tenten could only blush more at Lee's statement. They were attracting the attention of all their allies except Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke. "A god. I feel like some stupid fangirl. You better appreciate this, Lee. I went against my own wants to give you something you need. I hope you treat her right. You guys are like the brother and sister I never had. Oh wait a minute, you two are hooking up, so technically that's incest." Neji felt like a matchmaker, which saddened him because he wasn't good at relationships, but he could see that Tenten and Lee deserved each other. The grunting of Leche, who seemed to be a glutton for pain, cut off Neji's train of thought. Neji turned to the soon-to-be newlyweds and said, "I'm sorry to interrupt your honeymoon, but that guy is getting back up." Lee glanced over and saw that Leche was, indeed, getting back up. Lee got back up and faced Leche, and the two of them charged at the same moment, engaging in a fast-paced battle that carried them both to the sky. Hogo stood up and approached from behind while Lee was distracted by Leche. He directed energy into his fingers and then fired tiny energy-bearing bullets. Lee detected Hogo and vanished, and the pellets struck Leche before kicking Leche forward and into Hogo. When the two stood up, they charged Lee, who then flew down into the forest of death's trees, providing cover, leaving Leche and Hogo in the air with no way to follow him because they were unable to detect ki levels. Just as they were about to leave the air, Hogo was struck by a blue blast from the left below them. A few seconds later, Leche was attacked in a yellow hue and fell to the ground like Hogo. When Wavo awoke, Naruto had attacked him once more. Wavo was unable to resist Naruto's strength. Every blow he delivered was deflected, and every attack he tried was evaded. Naruto was just playing with Wavo, choosing to take his time, but he decided to end it because he was getting tired of fighting such a weak opponent. He kicked Wavo in the air after punching him across the face, then teleported above him, focusing energy into his hand, and then throwing the attack at Wavo while shouting, "Power Blitz." The attack struck Wavo and exploded, spilling his blood and guts onto the forest of death floor. Naruto flew to his friend's location to see them all watching Lee's battle, and when he turned to face Sasuke, he saw that Sakura was also in a state of shock from Lee's fighting. As he looked up, he saw Lee use a Buster Cannon attack on Hogo, followed a few seconds later by a double buster on Leche. They both landed, and Lee picked them up and threw them into the center of the clearing, forming his hands into a circle in front of his chest and gathering energy that he then fired when the energy turned slightly green, shouting, "Light grenade." Following the attack, which destroyed both Hogo and Leche, Naruto chose to drop the transformation, with Lee following him. As soon as they did so, the adrenaline from the battle subsided, and everyone began asking them questions. Lee and Naruto exchanged glances as though they were conversing in their minds. Naruto sighed, realizing that he couldn't keep it from them because they risked their lives for him and he had to be honest with them because they deserved it. Sakura was still conscious when Naruto turned to face her, so he decided to take care of that minor issue by swiftly knocking her out before returning to his starting position and asking, "So what do you want to know first?" Shikamaru took the stage and asked, "What caused that change?" "Well, this is the thing," Naruto said. "Contrary to what I initially told everyone, it is not a bloodline. Actually, I have some alien ancestry." "You mean those three things that you just killed?" Ino asked. "No, I'm not like them at all," Naruto remarked. "In any case, my tale begins a long time ago. The World Trade Organization was founded more than a century ago by Frieza, a malevolent space tyrant, his brother Cooler, and their father King Cold. After killing everything on a planet, they would sell it to the highest bidder." The mutter of Tenten was, "That's horrible, but those three didn't do it themselves," Naruto went on. "They had it done for them by other races. My race was one of those races. The Saiyans were the name of my race. Despite their human-like appearance, they were designed exclusively for combat. They grew stronger the more they battled. They become stronger as they recover from combat. Their power increased significantly if they were fatally wounded. The Cold family wanted them to carry out the extermination, so you can understand why. Before my ancestor Bardock chose to rebel, my people were forced into slavery. Frieza personally destroyed Bardock and the Saiyan homeworld because all the Saiyans agreed with him." "What kind of technique could destroy an entire planet?" everyone gasped. "But why destroy an entire planet?" Shikamaru asked. "There was a legend," Naruto stated. "According to the legend, the Super Saiyan, a Saiyan with superhuman strength, would emerge once every 1,000 years. In the entire universe, the Super Saiyan would be the most formidable fighter. When Frieza first began to see the Saiyan's actual power. For him, Shikamaru concluded, Frieza became paranoid and wiped out the entire planet to stop the legend from becoming true." Lee continued the narrative, saying, "Frieza was unfortunate in that he allowed too many Saiyans to survive. A total of 8 Saiyans survived. They were told a falsehood about the destruction of their planet, and 3 of them lived as Frieza's soldiers. Before they were both killed, 2 of them lived on another planet. One was Tarbell, my many times great uncle, who lived on a different planet prior to the destruction of the Saiyan homeworld. Before being killed, one survived to become a space pirate. The last was named Kakarot. As a newborn baby, Kakarot was sent to a planet to destroy it." Ino was shouting, "What? But how can they do that to an infant?" Lee stated, "Sadly, it was a tradition that Frieza imposed on the Saiyans. He wanted the Saiyans to only know how to fight." Choji remarked, "But why?" Shikamaru continued, "If they come out of the womb only knowing how to fight and only learning to fight, then that would mean that learning other things would be damn near impossible to do. It would keep them dumb. A race of strong dumbasses is a lot easier to rule over than a race of sophisticated powerhouses." Continue. In any case, Lee stated, he was hit in the head while on the planet, which caused him to forget his mission to destroy the planet and instead choose to save it. Kakarot was renamed Goku on the planet, and that was the name he used for the remainder of his life. Goku's brother Raditz, one of the 3 employees of Frieza, reminded him of his Saiyan ancestry after he had been on the planet for some time. In an attempt to recruit Goku to work for Frieza, Raditz traveled to Goku's planet, but it was unsuccessful. Goku had to kill Raditz because he posed a threat to his family. Eventually, my ancestor Vegeta fought Goku. They both then learned about how their home planet was really destroyed. They decided to team up and kill Frieza, which they did. It turned out that the legend of Super Saiyan wasn't talking about one Saiyan in particular, but all of them. All the Saiyans could make the transformation to Super. Neji responded, "Which is what Naruto did. Is that how his hair turns blonde and his eyes turned blue?" "Yeah," Naruto replied. "But why can't Lee reach it?" Tenten asked. Naruto stated, "Lee is descended from the royal family of Saiyans." "Wait a minute, Lee, you're royalty?" Neji asked. "Yeah, Neji, I'm the prince of about 3 people. That's so important," Lee remarked cynically. Naruto replied, "Like I was saying, his ancestor was Vegeta, the person who helped Goku kill Frieza. In the royal family, there was a genetic disease. It would eat away at their energy. If left uncured, the person with the disease would die when they turn 18. You mean Lee Kun's gonna die? Asked Tenten. Naruto stated, you don't have to worry Tenten. On the Saiyan homeworld, the plants there made a medicine that could cure him. The same plants grew at the planet that Goku inhabited. On this planet though, the plants were hard to find. So Lee's father went on a search for it for the last 5 years, finding a cure. He found the cure and gave it to Lee. But Lee's body is still recovering from the disease, so it'll take a while before his body is ready for the strain that comes with transforming into a Super Saiyan. For Shikamaru, I get it now, says Naruto. Get what? Shikamaru replied, I just put all the pieces together. I think I just found the answer to why the villagers hate you and who your father is. Naruto replied, damn Shikamaru, I haven't even gotten to the part about my father yet. I didn't think you'd put the pieces together until I got a little farther. Shikamaru replied, I've been trying to piece this thing together for the better part of a year. Give me some credit. But continue the story, Shoji said. Naruto continued the story. Eventually, Vegeta settled on the planet Goku was on and had a family. About 49 years ago, Lee's dad was born. My dad was born 2 years later. Shikamaru replied, but how is that possible? That would mean that you were born when your dad was 35 years old. Naruto replied, yep. Saiyans age slowly. Hell, Vegeta was actually in his 60s and he still looked 20. Fought like it too. But anyway, my dad, named Goku Jr., and Lee's dad, named Vegeta Jr., were best friends. But Frieza's race found them and their planet. Their race invaded the planet and killed the inhabitants. Our dads had to leave the planet as it blew up, and they swore to get revenge. Tenten was about to cry, and so was Ino. Neji and Choji were observing Naruto and Lee sympathetically. Shikamaru appeared pleased that their dads survived. Lee replaced them. They arrived in Konohagakure as civilians after landing on the planet, and after telling the Hokage their story, he decided to turn them into ninjas and give them false backgrounds. My father adopted the name Jufu Lee, and Naruto's father adopted the name Minato Namikaze. While Naruto trained Kakashi, my father trained Guy Sensei. They eventually married each other. Even Goku Jr. was given the title of Yondaime Hokage. Lee then turned to face Naruto, who was aware that the next part would be difficult for him to handle. Naruto chose to tell them himself, but as the story came to a close, he began to fear rejection from the others. He was unable to look them in the eye because he didn't want to see his friends' faces change from acceptance to hatred. Everything was fine until the Kyuubi attacked, Lee said. My father was outmatched, despite the fact that he was arguably the strongest person to have ever set foot on this planet. Since the Kyuubi was made entirely of energy, he was unable to defeat it. Thus, he took the next best action. I am his only son, and he sealed it in me. Shikamaru stood there unfazed by the news, having previously pieced it together. Neji was the only one to speak up. Those foul, inhuman bastards. Choji was so shocked that he dropped his bag of chips. Ino was staring at the ground, reflecting on her life and everything that had happened to Naruto. Tenten was also thinking back on her life, wondering how someone as nice as Naruto could hold something so evil. What? Said Naruto. How could those villagers treat you like that? Asked Neji. I assumed it was because they detested your practical jokes, but they despise you for having to save our village? How stupid are these people? Tenten replied, yes. Every day, you keep that beast at bay and save our lives. Why would anyone treat you that way? It was said by the Kyuubi, hey, I resent that. As Naruto reflected, no one cares. Although Naruto would have forgiven Ino in an instant, he knew that she would be upset with herself for a while because she constantly put him down because that's what everyone else was doing. Ino ran over to hug Naruto, buried her head in his shoulder, and began muttering, I'm sorry, repeatedly. I don't understand how the people could be that stupid, Shoji remarked. I think you're the kindest person I've ever encountered. I would have allowed the Kyuubi to escape and redecorate the village long ago if I had been treated the same way you were and had the Kyuubi's power sealed inside of me. I agree with the fat kid, Kyuubi said. Let's do that. Shut up. My father worked too hard to improve this place for me to let you destroy it. Even though I want to, I won't let you destroy this village, Naruto reflected. Kyuubi grumbled, yeah, just let the bureaucrats, gold diggers, bastards, and greedy fools on the councils do it for you. Ignoring the Kyuubi, Naruto uttered the words, thanks for accepting me guys. Tenten remarked, why don't we? It's clear that you are the jailer, not the inmate. The prisoner would be released more easily if you were hurt. Shikamaru replied, if these people can't understand the difference between you and the Kyuubi, then they are nothing but complete and total idiots. I thought you guys would hate me, Naruto remarked. Knowing that I have more than 2 true friends in my life makes me happy. When Ino finally stopped crying and heard Naruto forgive her, she muttered, "Thanks," and returned to her team. Lee discussed the situation with his team and they made the decision to move on as they could now defend themselves now that Naruto, Shikamaru, and Choji were back. They all bid each other farewell and Lee's team departed. Unbeknownst to them, however, the seal had just fulfilled its preliminary purpose, and now had a deep root in Sasuke's subconscious, flowing through his chakra coils like poison, infecting everything it touched. The team began to settle into their makeshift base, and they all took turns keeping an eye on Sasuke and the surrounding area, though Sakura was not permitted to be up alone because she had been attempting to jump him. By the end of the second section of the test, Orochimaru would possess Sasuke's body. Shikamaru was keeping an eye on Sasuke when morning arrived. Sasuke appeared to be feeling fine because he had been sleeping through the whole night. However, Shikamaru didn't believe it. Their team engaged in combat with Orochimaru of the Densetsu no Sannin on their first day here. In the elemental nations, Orochimaru was regarded as one of the most dangerous men. In everything he did, he had a hidden agenda. Shikamaru didn't believe that some scroll was the cause of his attack on their team. He had a purpose. It was well known that Orochimaru experimented to discover the key to immortality. Orochimaru appeared to have chosen Naruto as his target. Naruto's healing factor is so advanced that it almost reaches regeneration. Orochimaru could experiment with it and discover what he had been looking for all his life if he could somehow duplicate it. However, Shikamaru had to reject that theory in light of what he had heard the night before. He was informed by Naruto that many members of the elder generation were aware of the Kyuubi no Kitsun's imprisonment within him. Orochimaru would be included in that. It was said that the Kyuubi's chakra was toxic. Orochimaru didn't seem like the kind of person who would simply ignore something like that, even though it had never been tested. It seemed like too much of a risk for Orochimaru to take because the Kyuubi's chakra might be poisonous. Sasuke would be left since Sakura lacked any notable skills. It must have been Sasuke who Orochimaru attacked, but why is a mystery. Orochimaru could only desire the Sharingan, which Sasuke possessed, but that wouldn't help him achieve his immortality quest. Shikamaru's conjecture had to stop there, regrettably. He didn't have any more hints to solve this puzzle. Shikamaru had no choice but to listen and hope that someone would make a mistake and say something inappropriate. Shikamaru simply returned to keeping an eye on the forest for any trouble. Shikamaru searched for 10 minutes and saw nothing but squirrels and other creatures. Fortunately, none of his traps were set off by the animals. Shikamaru noticed a bush that appeared to be lacking a few leaves while scanning the area. Most likely from Naruto and Lee's battle with those extraterrestrials the previous evening. Shikamaru peered more intently through the bushes and noticed what appeared to be a black hue. However, that is incorrect. Shikamaru should have been able to see the brown tree bark because that bush was directly in front of a row of trees. Furthermore, Shikamaru was positive he saw it move a little. Shikamaru had warning signs in his mind. Whatever was in the bushes, something was going to happen. Suddenly, a squirrel emerged from the same bush. Shikamaru set a trap there, and the squirrel was passing over it. With haste, Shikamaru pulled out a kunai and hurled it at the squirrel, preventing it from reaching his trap. Good, Shikamaru thought. The trap wasn't sprung. Someone is in that bush, if my guess is correct. When the squirrel approached my trap, they sent it out to see what I would do. Shikamaru waited for several minutes before noticing 3 individuals emerge from the bushes. They were the Hidden Sound Village team. One of the 3, wearing a yellow shirt with the kanji for death on it, a black scarf with black spots, and spiky black hair, said, "Look what we have here. Some leaf ninja all on his own. So, where's your other friends?" For Shikamaru, what's it to you? With an amplifier on his left arm, a strange, tan, furry poncho, the same scarf as his other friend, and gauze wrapped around his head except for his left eye, the other male member of the group said, "Well, we're looking for a friend of yours named Sasuke Uchiha. We were sent by a friend of his to have a conversation with him." This friend wouldn't happen to be Orochimaru, would it? Shikamaru said, squinting his eyes. With narrowed eyes, the man in the yellow shirt said, "So you know him? Then you should know that when Orochimaru sends someone to do something, he doesn't like failure." "What do you 3 want anyway?" asked Shikamaru. The group's girl, who shared the same scarf as the other 2 and wore black pants and a tan vest, declared, "We were sent by Lord Orochimaru to kill the Uchiha. Now move aside so we can complete our mission." Shikamaru replied, "Well, I'm sorry, I can't let you do that. As troublesome as it is, he's a friend of mine, so I have to protect him." "Well then, you can die with him," exclaimed the person wearing the yellow shirt. At Shikamaru, the sound nin charged forward. Knowing they would soon fall into his trap, Shikamaru simply stood there. After leaping over the spot where Shikamaru set his trap, the sound nin fell into another one. To deter them, Shikamaru positioned a tripwire 4 feet above the evident trap. Directly at the sound nin, the trap caused a boulder to crash through the clearing. After landing, the person wearing the yellow shirt turned to face the boulder. He shouted, "Decapitating airwave," and held out his hands. A tremendous burst of pressurized air emerged from the man's palms. The air struck the boulder as it sailed forward like sharpened blades. It stopped it in its tracks and gave it some deep cuts, but it didn't destroy it. The issue was that Shikamaru had another tripwire that was cut by Zaku's attack, causing a net of logs to fall into the clearing. The logs were so close that the sound nin could hardly avoid them. The child replied, "Was that your trap? That was pathetic." A wet behind the ears genin could have came up with something better. The plan wasn't to hurt you, it was to wake them up. Shikamaru grinned. "What the hell is all that racket? Don't you see people trying to sleep?" Naruto exclaimed as he emerged from the trees, rubbing his eyes. As Shikamaru put it, "Naruto, look forward." When Naruto saw the 3 sound nin, he instantly assumed a fighting stance. Seeing the trouble, Ino, Sakura, and Shoji emerged from the trees. As Ino and Shoji prepared for combat, Sakura simply collapsed to her knees and yelled, "Save us Sasuke-kun." Ino murmured, "And she was my rival back then, how pathetic was I?" Naruto was saying, "We'll deal with the babbling banshee later, right now we got trouble." The genin that was mummified said, "Too bad for you 3, we aren't like any regular genin. You picked the wrong choice getting between us and our target." "What's their target exactly?" Naruto said softly as he turned to face Shikamaru. Without taking his eyes off the enemy, Shikamaru uttered the words, "Sasuke." Naruto reverted to his battle stance, narrowing his eyes. They stood there, each side waiting for the other to move. The yellow-shirted man shouted, "I'm tired of waiting." Decapitating airwave, after a few seconds. Once more, the assault headed straight for Naruto and his companions. The others dispersed rapidly to the sides. Just as Naruto turned to go, he realized Sasuke was still in the tree. He would perish if he didn't go outside. With a quick thought, Naruto directed his ki outward, encircling himself in the base of the tree with a shield. After striking the shield, the attack bounced off into the woods. When Naruto realized the attack was over, he hurried to fetch Sasuke and dashed to his friend's location. He hurried forward after dropping Sasuke to the ground when he got there. He was closely followed by the others. Ino chose to take the group's girl after breaking away from the others. After drawing 2 senbon, the woman, Kin, engaged Ino in combat. Kin said, "Look at you. You're probably one of those blonde bimbos that are all around here. You probably spend all your free time trying on makeup or puking up your diet. You Konoha whores aren't real kunoichi. You're just bitches who showed some body for a hit. After squinting at Kin, Ino remarked, "You didn't just say that." "Oh yes I did, you bottle blonde bimbo," said Kin with a sly smile. Pulling her hand back for a punch, Ino rushed forward, in other words, taijutsu, fail. Kin used a kunai to stab Ino when she got close enough, but the attack was stopped by an afterimage. After dodging the blow, Ino flipped into a handstand and encircled Kin's neck with her legs. Then Ino flipped up and pushed off her hands. She used the momentum of the fall to turn Kin around and force her to land headfirst on the ground after punching her in the face 3 times and then flipping back down. Kin was only a half-second behind Ino as she hurried back up. Kin dodged Ino's kick as he charged forward and took the lead. Then Kin attempted to stab Ino once more, but before the senbon could reach her, Ino grabbed her arm. Then Ino swung Kin around before slamming her to the floor. Kin reached her feet once more after rolling on the ground. Kin replied, "It seems like I was wrong. Maybe Konoha kunoichi aren't the whores I've been hearing about." Ino replied, "Sadly, you're right. I'm just different from all these other hoes." Then Ino hurried forward once more, generating 3 ordinary clones. The clones lunged forward, threatening to strike Kin. Kin avoided every blow because the clones were moving too quickly for her to tell them apart from the original. She was unfortunately put in a position where she was unable to defend herself as a result of the 3 clones' attacks. She was knocked into a tree after the original Ino kicked her in the chest. Ino was faster than Kin, who pushed off the tree and attacked Ino once more. Ino rolled behind Kin, leaving an afterimage in her wake. Thinking that Ino would be down there again, Kin used her other hand to stab downward as her senbon passed through an afterimage. After leaping into the air, Ino landed on Kin's head. Kin fell forward, landing face first on the ground with Ino's entire weight on her back. Ino stood up and took off her clothes. She said, "And my hair color's natural, bitch," as she turned to Kin. So Ino kicked Kin in the head to emphasize the bitch. The boy in the yellow shirt, Zaku, was the target of Naruto. Zaku replied, "This is as far as you go." Decapitating airwave. Once more, Naruto was the target of the air attack. Naruto simply took the blow with an afterimage. Zaku was startled to discover that Naruto had been hit by his attack when it was over. There was a smirking Naruto who gestured to Zaku's left. Naruto was charging at Zaku when he turned that way. It only passed through another afterimage when he blasted again. Zaku replied, "Damn it, I'm tired of these damn clones." He heard Naruto's voice behind him. "You know, you're a strong guy. You're just cocky as hell and can't aim worth shit. Dodge this." "Super decapitating airwave," exclaimed Zaku. The air rushed toward Naruto in what appeared to be Zaku's usual attack on steroids. Naruto left a shadow clone and an afterimage in a flash. Naruto moved to Zaku's left, and the shadow clone moved to his right. At the same moment, they both moved away from Zaku and uttered the words, "Now you're taking my attacks. Copycat." "Stand still," said Zaku. Then he fired a blast at each flank. Smirking, the Narutos began to gather energy. While one attack took on a purple glow, the other took on a bluish glow. They shouted, "Spirit Ball, Power Blitz," as they launched their assaults. Zaku's decapitating airwaves collided with the balls of ki and were neutralized. Dosu was battling Shikamaru and Choji concurrently with Zaku's battle with Naruto. Dosu was attempting taijutsu when Choji ran towards him. Dosu grinned and used his left arm at the same arm he was wearing his amplifier to block one of Choji's blows. Choji struck Dosu's arm, causing it to move. A sound wave is released when something moves. You can easily hear something like a desk being moved, but not something like an arm moving. However, they do produce a tiny sound wave, one that is loud enough to be picked up and controlled by Dosu's amplifier. A sound wave at a specific frequency was emitted by Dosu's amplifier. Choji's inner ear was affected by that frequency, which began to impair his coordination. Choji's moves became weaker and messier as he continued to fight, making them nearly impossible to avoid. To further confuse Choji, Dosu continued to send out the frequency using his amplifier. Choji eventually passed out like a light after his body could no longer handle it. Although Shikamaru was unaware of Dosu's strategy, he was aware that the amplifier was involved. With a shout of Shadow Possession Jutsu, Shikamaru performed the hand seals. Dosu was too fast, but Shikamaru's shadow reached forward. Dosu, believing he had the advantage, leapt backwards. Shikamaru, however, was always one step ahead of everyone. There was a lot of shadow because he threw his shadow into the trees. Shikamaru advanced further by using the tree shadows. As Shikamaru had intended, he eventually forced his shadow to emerge from the forest and join Dosu's, which was only 2 feet from the tree line. Dosu replied, "It seems that we're at a standstill." According to Shikamaru, "Not quite, I can still move." Dosu replied, "But if you move backwards anymore, you'll disconnect our shadows, which will enable me to move. But unlike you, I still have another trick up my sleeve." Suddenly, a purple aura began to emanate from Dosu. Dosu began to fight the shadow possession, which worried Shikamaru. A powerful chakra and an even more powerful will were needed to consciously counteract the effects of the shadow possession jutsu. He urgently needed assistance. "But unlike you, I have a powerful ally, Naruto," said Shikamaru. "What's up, Shikamaru?" asked Naruto, who was merely playing with Zaku, as he made a few more shadow clones. Shikamaru replied, "I need your help. Choji's down, I can't move, and this guy is breaking the shadow possession jutsu." According to Naruto, "No problem." As he prepared to knock Dosu out, Naruto hurried over to him. Dosu released his hold at that point and turned on his amplifier. Naruto fell to his knees as the sound exited the amplifier and reached his ears. Regretfully, Naruto's improved hearing coincided with his transformation into a half Saiyan. Dosu's attack was much worse for him because he had better hearing. The sound was too loud for Naruto to handle. The more he tried to ignore it, the more it hurt. When Ino saw this, she attempted to run to him but was hit by a backhand and fell to the ground. She saw Kin there when she stood up. But Kin's skin was covered in strange lines. Kin replied, "This is round 2, and the last for you." Zaku had been marked in the same way as Kin. Zaku grinned as he turned to face Naruto. He stated, "I am gonna enjoy this. Super decapitating airwave." Naruto was still on his knees, writhing in agony, when the attack struck. Naruto went sailing and was knocked unconscious when he hit the ground. Shikamaru began devising strategies to save him and his companions after realizing that he could only draw a kunai. There was roughly equal combat between Ino and Kin. But before Ino realized what was going on, Zaku was also attacking her. While Kin was holding her, Zaku punched her in the face. He then kicked her in the chin, knocking her back. Ino got back to her feet and began performing hand seals. "Fire style. Fireball jutsu," she exclaimed. Zaku's decapitating airwave intercepted her fireball as it surged forward. Ino was sent rolling on the ground as her attack was swiftly put down. With the intention of finishing her and then Sasuke, Zaku hurried forward, but his hand was caught. He saw what he believed to be Satan in human form when he looked to his right. The enormous claws of the individual appeared to be dripping with a sickly green fluid. His skin was entirely black, and he had pulsating red lines tattooed all over his body. It appeared that the red lines were arteries. His hair was jet black and reached his shoulders. Two bat-like wings came out of his back, however, his eyes were more frightening than that. Despite being Sharingan, they were more malicious than Zaku had ever seen. He flipped Zaku over and faced Ino. "Ino, who did this to you?" he asked. "Sasuke-kun," asked Ino. "We'll talk later, but who did this to you?" asked Sasuke. "I did it. Got a problem with it?" said Zaku after he had picked himself up. Narrowing his Sharingan eyes, Sasuke replied, "Yes, I do." Then, suddenly, Sasuke was gone. His voice was everywhere. He stated, "You touched my girlfriend. You hurt my girlfriend. What do you think?" Zaku was kicked in Kin's direction by Sasuke, who emerged from behind him. Kin began tossing Senbon at Sasuke while ducking beneath Zaku. The vile acid practically soaked Sasuke's claws as he directed his dark energy toward them. The Senbon was destroyed when he swung his hand down, releasing 5 crescents of energy that sailed forward from his hands. "Got any more tricks?" he asked. Zaku replied, "Try this, super decapitating airwave." Zaku launched his assault. "You're copying Naruto now?" "Pathetic," remarked Sasuke. He exclaimed, "Susanoo no Tate," while extending his left hand. Sasuke formed a shield with a mirror on the front by folding his left arm in on itself. Sasuke was slightly knocked back by Zaku's attack, which struck the shield, but he managed to remain still by concentrating his chakra on the ground. Zaku was shocked to learn that Sasuke was still alive after the attack. According to Sasuke, "Now, it's my turn." Pushing his shield as close to Zaku as he could, Sasuke ran to his side. Zaku dodged Sasuke's attack, just missing it, after sensing danger. Zaku's attack blasted out of Sasuke's shield's mirror. When Zaku looked back to assess the damage, he saw that it had caused more than his attack had. He responded with, "Just what the hell did you do?" Sasuke flashed his long canine teeth in a smile. He continued, "Like it? It's part of the cursed seal that Orochimaru gave me?" With wide eyes, Zaku asked, "Orochimaru gave you what?" Sasuke replied, "It seems you don't know. That bastard gave me a cursed seal. It gave me all this power, and turned me into this. I guess I have something to thank him for now. He gave me a brand new toy to play with." After standing up again, Zaku remarked, "Well, it doesn't matter. All 3 of us have them too. And in case you didn't notice, you're outnumbered. This will be a piece of cake." To which Sasuke replied, "Yeah, for me." Zaku used the super decapitating airwave to blast Sasuke. Sasuke reabsorbed the blow after shifting his shield out of the way. He stated, "This is the Susanoo no Tate. The shield of Susanoo. This absorbs certain attacks, then sends them out whenever I wanted to. So you blasting your airwave off is doing nothing but giving me more ammo to defeat you with." Zaku hurried Sasuke while narrowing his eyes. Kin began to follow him, and so did Dosu. With wide eyes, Sasuke watched the 3 Sound Genin's actions. He was asking, "Are you guys really doing this? In case you forgot, I'm a Uchiha. Taijutsu expertise is practically genetic for us." Sasuke waited for them to hurry him while dressing in his family's manner. Using the Sharingan, Zaku attempted a right hook across Sasuke's face, but Sasuke was able to see it clearly. He dodged the blow and struck Zaku in the chest. Kin and Dosu came next. Kin targeted Sasuke's head, while Dosu used a sweep to kick Sasuke's legs out from under him. Sasuke dodged their attack by leaping back, then lunging forward while spinning in midair to increase the force of his kick to Kin's side. He was punched in the face by Zaku, who emerged from his side. Sasuke spun around and kicked Zaku in the face, using the momentum of the punch. Sasuke felt an odd ringing in his ear as he ducked under Dosu's blow. He noticed that it was bleeding when he put his hand up to it. Dosu struck Sasuke once more, but this time he leapt back. His ear began to ring more intensely. Flapping his wings to stay afloat, Sasuke leapt into the air. He could have flown using his normal powers, but he preferred to frighten the sound genin. Shutting his eyes, Sasuke began reviewing his memories of the battle to look for any patterns in Dosu's attacks. Obviously, his amplifier. He swings with it all the time. My ears are getting damaged by that amplifier. It must be removed. He was on the wrong side of a super decapitating airwave when Sasuke opened his eyes. He was struck by the attack, which knocked him to the ground. When Sasuke saw the ground coming, he vigorously flapped his wings to halt his descent. After swiftly repositioning himself, he returned to the air to avoid the sound genin. When Sasuke extended his left arm, it once more folded in on itself. The Susanoo no Tate was formed by it. After pulling his arm back and turning it so that the shield's mirror side was facing up, Sasuke threw it. Flying through the air, the shield headed for the sound genin. It moved out of the way as if it were sentient when Zaku attempted to strike it with his decapitating airwave. If they had looked at Sasuke, they would have seen him controlling the motion of the shield with the index and middle fingers of his right hand. The attack headed directly for Dosu, sailing past Zaku and Kin. Dosu leapt back and attempted, but was unable, to get out of the shield's path. The amplifier was struck by the shield's swerve. Then it headed straight for Sasuke. He was restored to wholeness when it reattached itself to his arm. I understand. Consequently, the shield can only be detached from my body for 20 seconds before returning. That will have to be watched. Sasuke swiveled down and went back to battle with the sound genin. You three are boring me. It's time I ended this, Sasuke uttered while fighting. After dodging Dosu's blow, Sasuke applied a green liquid to his claws. He cut upward, penetrating Dosu's body deeply. With a scream, Dosu fell backward. Sasuke replied, that is another ability. This seal allows me to coat my claws in poison. The poison does whatever I want it to. It can paralyze, like what it did to you. Or it can kill. Be lucky I decided to be merciful today. After applying the liquid to his other claws, Sasuke charged Kin and Zaku. Although they were both easily subdued and rendered immobile, Zaku resisted defeat. Thus, Sasuke had to rip through a crucial muscle in one of Zaku's arms. His arm would be essentially useless until it healed from the tear in that muscle. Sasuke replied, that paralysis should wear off in a few hours. When those hours are up, my friends and I should be safely in the tower. But if we're not, I could easily just hand you your asses again. The transformation left Sasuke's body as he closed his eyes. He had returned to his former self. But his body also suffered greatly as a result of that change. His entire body seemed to be hurting, so he fell to one knee and nearly passed out once more. I suppose this is how Naruto felt when he first became Super Saiyan. Sakura outran Ino as she hurried to Sasuke. Sasuke swiftly rolled under her hands and embraced Ino when she attempted to embrace him. He flew into the air as he was giving her a hug. He suspected that something he didn't want Sakura to know about would come up in the conversation. Ino replied, Sasuke-kun, I'm so happy you're alive. Why wouldn't I be? Asked Sasuke. Ino said, you've been in a coma for a day and a half. I've been worried sick. I thought you were gonna die. Sasuke replied, I won't be dying anytime soon, Ino-chan. I'd miss you too much. But that form you Useda, Ino said. According to Sasuke, what about it? Promise me you won't use it again, Ino said, meeting Sasuke's eyes. What? Said Sasuke. Ino responded, Sasuke, that form is evil. I could feel it while you were fighting. It's like you were yourself, but a different person too. How did she notice that? Sasuke wondered. He stated, I know Ino-chan. While I was fighting, it's like there was some voice in my head telling me what to do. I tried to block it out, but I couldn't. Luckily I had enough control to spare them. What do you mean? Asked Ino. Sasuke replied, that voice was telling me to kill them, and I almost did. The poison I put in their bodies, it was actually lethal. I didn't catch it until it was almost too late. I was able to change the poison from a lethal one to a paralyzing one at the last second. Ino replied, please Sasuke-kun, promise me you won't use that thing again. I'm scared I might lose you. Sasuke replied, I promise Ino-chan. Now come on, we gotta help everyone else. Though not life. Threatening, each person had a few bruises. They began their journey to the tower after waking the others. They got there fast and without incident. They opened the scrolls, got their instructions, and then rested at the tower to recover a bit before the next section of the exams started.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.